We are so excited you're joining us. We decided to put together this summit because we want to highlight the speakers, the people that are in the book. We've got several people, their case studies are in the Personal Agility book, and it's incredible to see the results. I think when Peter and I started on this journey and exploring this concept of what really matters, we didn't really fully realize exactly how effective it would be. We had this like inkling of an idea. Like many of us here probably used Agile, and we probably applied Agile in different ways and gotten results, but it really is effective in your life. And so I've been blown away by the results people have gotten. And I'm excited for you to be able to hear from the different speakers, practitioners featured in the book, and we'll also be sharing the recording for everyone after this event. So thank you all for joining us. It's wonderful to have you with us. So Joe Justice wanted to help us kick off the event, and he sent us a virtual video to share. And so let's go ahead and see what Joe has to say as we kick off the first Personal Agility Summit as we celebrate our book launch.
Welcome to the Personal Agility Summit. I'm Joe Justice, who operated the Agile program at Tesla and built the company Wikispeed and brought Agile to hardware. Personal agility has been what I use to prioritize my own goals, my fitness, my relationship, my nutrition, growing my business. And for me, it's worked. I'd recommend you give a serious thought to your forces map, your goals, your wishes of how you wish your future would grow. And personal agility might just be the best platform for you. It is what I use, and it's worked for me in wonderful ways. Wishing you tremendous success. And again, thank you, Maria Matarelli. Thank you so much, all the people like Jim Hannon, Peter Stevens. The personal agility community continues to grow with recognized trainers and practitioners. And I'm grateful to everyone who's amplified my journey and helped me learn the system and use it. Enjoy yourself, and maybe it's what's best for you too.
All right. Thank you, Joe. As we get started today, we have a lineup of, you're going to hear different stories, different speakers that are going to be sharing their personal experience applying personal agility from a personal context to a business context. And it's really, when you look at the book, the first half of the book is talking through how you apply personal agility yourself, how you can identify what really matters and do things that are more meaningful, as well as applying it in a more of a business context. And the results, especially in business, absolutely blew me away when it comes down to bottom line revenue. Being able to turn companies around from near bankruptcy, hitting $35 million valuations in a year and a half, being able to people starting businesses and being able to bring in six figures their first year in business, being able to land six-figure clients, double their revenue. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And so as we get started, want to share one of the reasons we're here today. The main reason, I would say, the main event is the book is launching on Amazon. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Peter and I would love to invite you to get a copy of the book today. We did do a special price drop on the Kindle version. So over on the right-hand side, it's just $1. If you want to get the Kindle version and check out the book with all the stories, all the case studies from the speakers you're going to hear today, you can get that on Amazon for $1 on Kindle, or you can buy the paperback or hardcover version. If you can share with other colleagues, friends, family members, it'd be a great gift, really helping people discover how they can apply these agile techniques, the techniques that we see work in business all the time, and applying these techniques in their life to do more of what really matters. So really appreciate your support. This has been years in the making. Peter and I have been writing this book virtually. He's in Switzerland, I'm in the US, and we have been coordinating over Google Docs and doing pair writing for several years now. It's been quite an interesting experience writing virtually and going back and forth on the text, validating all the case studies with all of the people that are mentioned in the book. And so it has definitely been a bit of a labor of love to get these stories to you, get these techniques, these systems. Awesome, Gordon. Thank you. Appreciate you picking up the book. Yeah, let us know if you get the book, comment in the chat. Also, if you can share this with your network, share this on social media. We're so excited to be able to really share empirical evidence. I've heard recently about some people talking about, hey, companies are letting go agile coaches, they're letting go agilists. Well, why is that? Why is it that they're letting go people that know what agile is and how it works? And if they're not getting results with agile, they might be not doing it to the full extent, like by the framework, by the methodology, right? And so that's one of the reasons that Peter and I thought it was very important to document case studies to show how people are actually getting real results with personal agility, which brings us to our first speaker. Our first speaker is Pete Bloom. Pete is the chairman of the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses. He is also very accomplished in his career. He's the chief operating officer of Phoenix Portfolio Partners, an agile venture capitalist company here in the Tampa Bay, Florida area. So I want to turn the floor over to Pete. And Pete, just want to say welcome. Thanks for joining us. And Pete, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey with personal agility, and then also how you were able to use this and how you see this help other veterans and how this could help people transitioning out of the military as one of the many applications. Pete is also featured in the book, so if you get a copy, you can read more about Pete's story applying the personal agility system. Pete, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Maria, and hello, everyone, and welcome. Uh, Interesting, wonderful story. Actually, when it all started, it was because I went to Maria's Scrum Master class, and that was because somebody named Ben Siever said, "Hey, we got this program that Maria has that is helping veterans." So Maria was helping veterans, and I got the ability to go to that program. Ended up getting hired by Ben and working with him, and that led to us, the team, going to Maria's personal agility class. And I would say that was kind of rather life-changing personally for myself, and I think I've seen it help many, many others through this journey and through the Personal Agility Institute, all the case studies that are on there and everything. So there's just story after story of how it helps people. With me personally, when you get out of the military, you have a mindset, and that's the thing. A lot of active duty people, they don't have time to, kind of think about the future. They work up to the last minute. They transition. They think it's going to be okay because they take, 30 days terminal leave, which is kind of like vacation to give you time to find a job or whatever. And, then they jump into the civilian world, and things just kind of fall apart. I mean, for myself, I was like, either in a mission mode or survival mode, and, didn't necessarily eat very well and things like that. And so I kind of really didn't realize I needed to turn my life around. And so, you have to figure out what matters. I mean, that's what this is all about, personal agility. If you read the book, you get all the details, and just applying that to your life, and for me, it was family. That was like one of the most important things, obviously health and financial stability. And one of the big things I always do is volunteer to help others. And so that was important to me as well. But in this journey and learning personal agility and defining what those things were that was really important, I realized through the process and through the method that, I was kind of spreading myself too thin. And I think that's something that we all do. And the best example that I could give for spreading myself too thin was you have work, you have your family time that you need. And then a lot of us in the military, we have a mindset of serving, so we volunteer. And so I was volunteering for probably 4 or 5 different veteran organizations, and that was where most of my time was going. So I didn't really have, I think, the quality time that I needed with my family. And if you're volunteering too much, you're not actually putting your best into the things you're volunteering for. So this showed me that I could slim things down and focus on what's really important. And so in my journey, I was much happier, spending more time with family, doing things, going out, geocaching. If you haven't done that, is very cool. So check it out. And volunteering, I did better, and work, I did better. And even in health, especially, I lost like 20 pounds. So, when you put a priority in your own life to your own health and your own wellness, and, you get out there and do some exercise because you're being accountable for that, based on this system, it's about accountability, then you will be healthier, you will be more successful. So, Maria, unless you have any questions, that is kind of my story.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. Appreciate that. And, that's something I can relate to also in maybe not necessarily prioritizing myself and my health. And, it's a tale as old as time, right? Putting other people in front of ourselves, in front of our own career goals or ambitions, or even our family. And so I think that's such an incredible thing. We want to open up the floor for questions from anyone here in the audience. So if anyone has any questions for Pete, one question I have, Pete, is how do you see this moving forward in helping other people that may be transitioning out of the military? I know we've talked about making some training available through the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses and partnering with Project Transition USA and some of the other groups that you're part of. What do you see as possible for other veterans? And as Pete answers this, would like to open up the floor for any other questions. Feel free to comment in the chat. Any other questions that you have for Pete?
Well, I just think the whole restructuring of the thought process, really, it's breaking out of that thing that we get into. When you're in the military, it's really all about compartmentalization, right? You're deployed, you're overseas, you're not with your family, you're in mission firefight mode. And what it is for all of us, whether you're military or not, is you can get stuck in that mindset. And so working with other veterans, it's really about educating them. They learn about personal agility, and they realize, okay, yeah, I'm stuck in a mindset too, and this can help me, course correct, figure out what's most important, move towards that goal, and it's just 100% effective. I mean, you take the right steps, it's right in front of you visually. Wow, look, I'm spending all my time with this, or I'm spending all my time with that. Not being healthy, I'm not spending time with family. And it kind of puts it on you that, like, wow, I really need to make changes, or I'm just going to, end my life realizing I didn't do anything that really mattered to me.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Pete. And, one of the things I've heard from people over the years is that getting out of the military, you go from having, very clear orders, right? Like every day, like here's exactly what to do. Here's exactly the parameters for going through every single day. And then getting out into the world, back into the civilian world, and you don't have all that guidance. Suddenly it's a wide open playing field. And without having the clarity on what really matters, might leave one to feel maybe lost or not know what that next direction is. So really appreciate your contribution. Appreciate you helping to bring this awareness to other people from the military.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'll continue to do so.
Awesome. Peter, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, well, I wanted to jump in here because when we were writing the book, we interviewed Pete, and we interviewed a couple of other people who were former military. And one of the things that really struck me about the military stories is kind of the story of, kind of how you come into the military and how your career goes, and basically, you come into the military either straight out of high school or straight out of college, about the, what is it? The non-commissioned officer track is basically coming out of high school. The commissioned officer track is coming out of college. But in either case, they send you to training and indoctrination. And one of the things they really emphasize is teaching leadership. Okay. And so the idea is, when you're out there, in a mission, everybody in that unit is fully briefed on what's supposed to happen and why it's supposed to happen. And everyone in that unit is, if necessary, capable of stepping up and taking responsibility for a situation. Okay. And, when we think about kids coming out of high school, we don't think of the best and the brightest. We don't think of necessarily being the elites. Now, if we go into special forces, okay, maybe, this is now very elite, but they teach leadership to everybody. Okay. And that really impressed me, because one of the things I hear over and over in agile transformations, the people who work in our teams, they're not able to take responsibility. They're practically children. We have to guide them on the line. The leadership don't really believe that people can lead or that people can take responsibility. And in fact, very often, and many of you are agile coaches, maybe some of you can confirm or deny this, whether you've seen these patterns. When people in an operational role do step up and take leadership, they often get shot down, figuratively, if not literally. And that, by the way, is the other thing about the military. When we have an expression like that, they often mean it literally, which gives it a whole different character. So, so what I'd like to do, this is something something that really impacted, how I think about leadership and how I think about the, kind of what we're doing in an agile transformation is I think what we're really doing is teaching people all the way up and down the line how to lead, how to think strategically, how to set goals. And so what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to turn this was kind of a diatribe, but there actually is a question hiding here somewhere. So, when we talk about kind of that path from coming out of high school to, being a leader of men in conflict situations, why isn't this whole thing, oh, these guys can't possibly lead? Why isn't that a thing in the military? And how does the military address that point?
You're talking about
Well,
someone
leadership
coming out of high school that can't.
Yeah,
Why
someone
can't they
coming out of
lead?
high school, and 4 years later, they're, leading their units into battle or leading their team into battle or, stuff like that. That's kind of the impression that I got, is that the military really trains leadership to everyone.
They do. It is true, and that's why you can't take a 17-year-old who joins and turn them into a leader. I mean, from the basic training, that's weeks worth of, can this person do it? Can they make it? Are they the material that can withstand what they might, face on a battlefield? And so you're put through that. And, if you can't make it, then obviously, you weren't built for that. So that's kind of where the beginning of building leaders starts with. And then, it's supplemented, year by year, rank by rank, there's additional training. As you go up, they teach you additional stuff to, reinforce leadership, over greater numbers of people. So it's kind of really instilled into you, through the entire process and given more responsibility over the amount of years and the amount of rank that you move up. So you can take any person and do that and make them a leader, just exactly like how with personal agility training, you can take any single person and give them the life that they always dreamed of. So just really a matter of really following that process, believing in the process and staying true to the process.
Okay, thank you, Pete. That was very helpful. So, what I'm hearing is that basically you can teach these skills to anyone. Okay, some of them are probably more inclined to do it in the heat of a battle situation, but the basic skills can be taught to anyone and anyone can learn it. Okay, I just watched Ratatouille. They said anyone can cook, anyone can lead.
I love that movie, Peter. I love Ratatouille. It's amazing. Big fan.
Okay, Maria, we have a question.
Yes, so we have a question in the chat from Walter. Thank you, Walter. So Pete, Walter's asking, did the things that really matter change over time? And if so, how did you find out that you had to adjust your what really matters compass?
They certainly do change over time because especially in the beginning, when you put everything on there and you decide, hey, these are my 3 or 4 most important things that matter, you start course correcting towards those things. And week by week, as you track and monitor the things that you're doing, then realize, okay, so if I was all red in this color and now the red's getting better, but the second thing that I need to concentrate on is this. So I think I started with thinning down the volunteering, and then I realized, well, okay, well, that's great, but I haven't really been working on my health. And so then you start working on that next thing. And then what is going to happen with personal agility as you progress on, through your life is new things are going to get added in. You're going to have a new goal or a new mission, and you're going to add it into the mix, and everything else is going to have to adjust accordingly. So I would say that this is something that you certainly want to continue to use throughout the rest of your life. And, you'll always be successful then.
Amazing. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that. And excited to be, we're currently going through a social accelerator program with St. Leo University, and really excited to have you in that program as well. And one of the things that we're looking at is how can we help more veterans with the personal agility system? How can we help to empower veterans in determining what's their next step after transition? And how can we measure the social impact? So I think that's going to be really exciting this year, Pete, as we continue to explore how we can create amazing results and look at how that can, really come to life even more. We've got all these amazing case studies, but, if we can make a dent in some of the statistics that are out there. Daryl Hill shared some statistics that are in the book, and he actually walked us through, what is the mentality of someone that's leaving the military, and really your identity is who you were, like your role, right? And it's similar to someone that's maybe leaving a job that they've had for 10, 20 years, right? Like, what's your identity after that? Professional athletes transitioning back to normal life after being a professional athlete, like, how do you just go back to the civilian world after living in a whole nother realm? And so, Pete, any thoughts about that? Or what are some things you're excited about with the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses this year and the Social Accelerator Program?
Well, with all of it, we are doing programs that can help others, and personal agility to me is top of the list. One of the most amazing things that can help other people. But yeah, we do got some other things going on. But I just want to express that it's got to be the most important thing here is that with personal agility, we can get the book and read the book, and we can make a change in our own lives and be happier and more successful. But I think the real calling for all of us really needs to be is to take that a step forward. And then there are so many others out there that need help, and it's to introduce them to this, just like I'm trying to do with all the veteran organizations. When they know and understand about it, and they can make such a major impact in their lives, it just kind of spreads. And I think that if we're blessed enough to have a better life, the least thing that we could do is try to pay it forward and help others. And so if I can help a veteran organization that has hundreds of people in it, that's amazing. But even if you can just help one person and just keep it going, I think all of us here can make a difference.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. Appreciate that. Thank you for joining us, Pete. It's such a pleasure to hear from you, straight from your thought process, the things that you've thought, the things that you found and experienced. And if you want to read about Pete's story in more detail, the Personal Agility book is launching today on Amazon, official launch. We've had some pre-release copies. We've had some people get some early copies for review from our community, but today is the day. So get your copy of the Personal Agility book on Amazon. The link is in the chat. We would love to have your support. Kindle version, just $1, so that we can help make it an easy no-brainer for people to be able to read how the system works and be able to hear the stories, be able to relate to the stories. And so one of the reasons Peter and I wanted to include so many different case studies is wanted to look at how personal agility could be applied in a variety of different areas. And that brings us to our next speaker, Ben Seaver. So Ben is also featured in the book, looking at the application of applying Agile in an executive environment. So as an executive, we hear about how important it is to have an Agile mindset. We hear about how important it is to be able to, think in an Agile way, be able to shift the way that we work. And so, Ben, thank you so much for joining us today, and would love to hear some thoughts from you on what were some of your biggest aha moments, some tips for other CEOs, other executives on how they could leverage the personal agility system to create amazing results in their life and in their business.
Yes, thank you guys for hosting me. I'll dive right in. So we started instituting personal agility during the pandemic. And so that was obviously a time that was highly emotional for a lot of executives and employees. So one of the biggest aha moments was, as an organization who has taken agility, even outside of traditional software development, we applied it to the boardroom, we applied it to marketing, we applied it to finance, really applying it to the personal lives. We found that even organizations who I thought were close really, opened up, and we had an outside facilitator, which was Maria, and she was able to draw out some of deep motivations, even of teams that work together for years. So I think it was good to combine both personal and professional agility into one, but then also have an outside perspective, really draw out and almost create an even safer space, if you will, a different perspective that otherwise our culture didn't have.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. And when you look at this concept of personal agility, a couple of things that we've heard over the years is people are saying, oh, well, that's personal. That's not for business, or that's not for work. And, I've always had the premise of, when you look at transitioning to Agile, if we want our teams to be more high performing, we want our teams to be more Agile, well, what are teams made up of? They're made up of people, right? So if people are more Agile in their mindset as individuals, that can help. But also as a leader, it's important to have that mindset shift. So what would you say to people that might think, oh, it's personal agility, how does that even apply to business? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so I'm at the very stage of my career where I've done personal agility longer than I've done pretty much any other management style. So I'm a big proponent of starting with someone's, we call it a personalized production plan. And now I think because of the remote environments and the ecosystem right now of everyone kind of being a little bit more sensitive on topics and a little bit more EQ focused, I think that it has to start with the personal, right? So especially because more likely than not, there are people at home, and just naturally you're in a remote environment, your personal life bleeds into your professional life more than it ever has. So I think it's almost expected, when you come into an environment. I know a lot of people, 10 years in the past, they were treated as resources, right? It was only about, all right, what's your output? What's the bottom line? Can you contribute? But now it's, all right, how can we help you as an organization grow and hit your goals? How can we adapt to you in this growing environment? And, for me, what I've done is I've actually incentivized employees with either, 4-day work weeks, or even incentivize them with, doing rotational programs, maybe even outside of their, traditional core competency, and really, getting that personal motivation has really yielded, giving more people opportunities. And I think that psychological safety and then, new stimuli, really contributes to, retaining employees.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So, Ben, what would you say to the leader out there that maybe they're in a situation where they're feeling pressure in the market? They're feeling pressure to be more agile. They might not even know what that is, right? Be more agile, or they hear other companies are using agile. What would you say specifically to the executive on what could help them? Why looking at personal agility could be something as that foundational leadership framework?
Yeah, so especially leaders in the C-suite, or at least VPs and above, I think they are just so focused, and there's so much pressure on the bottom line right now, that I think the almost closed door policies or closed Zoom policies really need to kind of break open. But I'm seeing there's such a huge gap between the executives making the decisions and then the people who actually guide the culture, right? So I would say the number one thing is to lead by example, and to start opening up those meetings, and even more importantly, show some vulnerability from the C-suite, show some vulnerability from the executive team, and really talk about how the changing environment is affecting policy and changes, because especially in the world of all these layoffs and whatnot, if even if someone doesn't have the technical know-how to affect maybe a large decision, it's great that they know the psyche of the people that are leading them. So I think vulnerability from the top and just way more expressive communication is what I would start with telling pretty much any organization that has a purview in multiple departments.
Awesome, thank you. And Ben, I got a question for you about your priorities map. As we got started, we did the personal agility workshop for the executive team. And then I remember you and I were having a coaching session, and part of the personal agility system for everyone here, just to share a little bit of an overview, is you ask the powerful question of what really matters. And the idea is to think about the top 3 to 4 things that really matter while taking a holistic view of everything in life. Because if everything matters, then nothing matters. So it's limiting the numbers of initiatives in progress rather than limiting work in progress. And I remember, Ben, we drew this pie chart, and you had 95% focused on work and like a little sliver of 5% for everything else. And over the years, I mean, many of us can just look at that and say that's probably not sustainable. I know you've been doing some things to try to get a little bit more balance and be able to not only be doing business all day, every day. What are some of the things you did, and how did that help you? And how did that visual reflection help you make some changes in your life?
Yes. So that was a little unbalanced way back when, but what I've really shifted to was, I find a lot of enjoyment in what I do. And so it's kind of that, even figuring out what really is social and, what's personal and what's professional now. But what I think what was really suffering back then was that I had lost, I'm very passionate by nature. And so it's not that I was losing passion, but I was losing steam and feeling burnout because of the fact that I just was going, almost around the clock. And I wasn't constantly reiterating to myself why I got in doing what I'm doing. So I call myself the Chief Empowerment Officer. And I realized that I was so focused on work and I wanted to empower the team, but I thought that, because my friends had joined the company, because my life was work and goals were being hit, that, that meant happiness, right? And so what I really did was I took a step back and I really kind of got connected with myself, and a lot of the hobbies, in my past, whether it be reading or, attending new skills or new summits, right? A lot of the things that I was doing in the past to even make myself a better leader or more happy, that would be social, really had stopped. And so I really, picked up more hobbies. And, I think one of the things that needs to be differentiated in, personal professional agility or even in the workforce is just because it's something that is business related or self-development related, that can be personal, right? A lot of individuals now are really focused on self-care and self-love, and that makes you, a better person, a better friend, and a better business owner. And I think it's really critical to really, reflect on just overall happiness and not just what milestones are getting hit.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Hey, Gordon, I appreciate you got your hand raised. Want to go ahead and invite you to share, ask any questions you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, absolutely agree. It's all about the people. I'm working with remote and distributed teams for a number of years. That's why I called what I did effective remote relationships, because it is about personal. But the specific question I have for you is, when you are working with VPs, with those kind of senior leaders, perhaps who historically, culturally have wanted, needed to show strength and not show indecision or almost kind of any emotions really either, and perhaps particularly where that comes from a specific cultural background. I work with a lot of people from kind of Central Eastern Europe. That's especially prevalent from that kind of culture. What techniques have you found work to encourage them to be more vulnerable, to show that more human side?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I was actually talking about this yesterday, because I think that's very prominent, that, in pretty much all cultures, and the leader has to show strength. They have to be that rock. And so I think there's a big delta between talking about an executive in the immediate now, either being stressed out or vulnerable, or more so bringing up a case study in the past. So that's kind of saying, hey, we're at a critical inflection point. I know that working with Maria or Peter or Pete last year, when we at our last inflection point, we all got together at a C-suite summit, and I was shocked learning that there was, some anxiety going on in the group, and these were the XYZ things that are happening. And because we voiced that, other leaders stepped up and filled in those gaps. So speaking as a whole made us actually stronger. And then talk about how we overcame that, instead of leaving it open-ended in the moment. Because if you talk about it in the moment right now, how vulnerable you are, that could I could understand how some employees would be like, oh my gosh, that unbreakable leader, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So talking about it, how, as you've shared before, how you've overcame it, and how that's something that you're going to duplicate during times of uncertainty.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate that. Peter, did you have any questions as we get ready to wrap up here? We've got just a couple minutes before our next speaker.
Okay, well, one thing that Ben said that really got my attention was they're applying agility in the boardroom. Okay, and they're kind of applying agility everywhere. And I'm kind of wondering, what in your eyes, what does agility look like in the boardroom?
So yeah, it really has to come down to what a company is. And so most people, it's culture, tech, finances, growth, right? And so that is one thing that we speak about, constantly. And now we're actually doing daily scrums every single day. I mean, a lot of people, may not be able to institute that, but those 4 pillars. And then, after we go to the boardroom, immediately going to, sales and marketing, and putting that overarching knowledge into the top line growth of the organization. So we rarely ever nowadays have a conversation in the board meeting where we don't have some kind of whether it be Kanban, Scrum, Trello, whatever that may be. We rarely ever have something that doesn't actually integrate all these departments. And so we really say we have a C-suite board meeting instead of we talk about we talk about them in silos. So, and one of the things with such an integrated org that we have, because we run a portfolio, so I think it's a very, very good microcosm of even what a corporation would look like, is a lot of people don't describe holistically what just one decision affects the entire org. So when we have, all right, someone brings in, let's say X amount of money for a capital raise, and then it gets deployed to these two departments, which then, they have to figure out how to spend it and then do a burn rate. And so we really get into the nitty gritty of, from the top down, where does it affect, people across the organization, from both stress level and then them having resources level.
Okay, so if I've understood you correctly, I just want to read this back to you. So, one of the things that you do is, you have a daily stand-up or a daily scrum. So, every day the key people come together, and I understand you're nice to people if they have to, miss a stand-up for some reason. But, basically, if you can be there, you are there. And the other thing that I heard is you usually have some kind of board or boards, in the sense of information radiator, like a Trello board or something. To kind of visualize your work and make it possible to discuss your work. And what I've heard is that because of this, that board that kind of integrates the entire scope of what you're doing. So it lets you have deeper conversations about how this decision is going to impact that part of the company. Is that, have I kind of picked up the essence of that?
Yes, absolutely. And then, and we also with that, because we're so regimented on road mapping, it's okay, well, if it affects, this organization or this department, how does that affect the senior leaders of it, and then the oncoming leaders of it? And then we put the onus on them to also kind of run, a mini duplicate, kind of board session with their team. So, I can tell you right now that our newest interns know when the financing is going to hit, how it translates to sales, what that means to PR. So it's a complete, transferable, agility to every single department. And no matter how, how senior, a leader is, but we make it from the top down, very visible across the organization.
Make it visible.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Ben, for joining us. You can read more about Ben's story in the Personal Agility book. I'm going to be plugging the book all day because today is the day that we are officially launching on Amazon. And we would love to invite you to read more about executive agility. It's in the second part of the book. You can read about Ben's case study along with several others. Thank you, Ben, for joining us.
Thank you.
Maria, there's another comment in the chat. I'm not sure if that's a question for Ben or not, from Amr.
Yes, a good question. How do we refer to
agility? Yeah.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I'm just going to read it. A good question would be, how do we refer to agility? Is it a strategy, a culture, values, events? I see it starts with the mindset when you wake up in the morning, far before you go to the stand-up. So what do you think? How would you refer to agility?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think, is it strategy, culture, values, events? I feel like it can be all of the above, but I think that the most important is the mindset. I think that's a really good point, because without the mindset, it's hard to get the actions. It's hard to get the collaboration. It's hard to get the team members rallying around that. And so I do think that having that mindset is always key and is the first step. And that's one of the reasons that you can start with personal agility. When you look at transitioning to Agile, imagine if each person on your team actually embrace the Agile values individually themselves. Imagine if they were already thinking in that way. Imagine if they were already reflecting as a regular way of just going through their week. And so, when we have this concept of agility, yes, it can be a strategy for business. Yes, you want your culture to adopt that. Yes, there are Agile values and we want to embrace them. And there are events if you're going through a specific framework or methodology, though I would say that the mindset definitely is one of the biggest keys and a great place to start. And I see a comment here from Ben, a willingness and commitment to company-wide transparent empowerment. And, that's really what it's all about. It's about empowerment. It's about empowering your people. And so it's about helping them to discover, what are their strengths. They're our subject matter experts. So next up, we have our next speaker. We have Naomi, who is joining us from Sri Lanka. Naomi, so excited to have you with us today. Naomi, Handanetti, I'm going to go ahead and invite you to join us, and would love to hear from you. Tell us a little bit more about personal agility. Your story is also in the personal agility book, and we're so excited to be able to feature the results that you got. And I know this was huge for you as you were going through looking at how to apply this in your context. So can you share it with us a little bit more?
Can I just jump in here? Excuse me, Naomi, I want to say, not only is your story in the book, your story is the opening sentence in the book.
Yeah, yes.
It's for executives, and we have the data to prove it. And I was like, wow, that was just so on spot. We heard that and we just had to put it up there. So anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. So, please pick up where Maria passed the baton to you.
No worries, Peter. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Maria, Peter, all the best with the book launch. Personal agility, where I come from Sri Lanka, from South Asia, it's a new concept, relatively a new concept. So I was introduced to personal agility by Peter. Of course, I went through the course. I was honestly during COVID, because I'm in the tourism sector. So we were 100% affected by COVID. And we didn't know what to do. But really, when I went through each step by step, your personal agility map, you have new concepts, and also to really understand being in one room with similar people from the same background, or it can be different backgrounds, but being a mom, being a wife, and I'm reading for my doctorate as well, and also running a business. So how do I map out all of these things with the given situation? Because we are financially zero. How do you start from scratch? So really, personal agility really helped me to bounce back, to sit back, and to understand what really matters to me that particular day. Because we had to plan out. We did not have a clean slate. We could just see the next 1 year ahead of us in a clear way. No, even today we take one day at a time because of the financial crisis. So personal agility has helped me professionally and personally, as well as my business and my personal life. So that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, thank you, Naomi. Appreciate you sharing that. And, also you joined us at the Experience Agile event a few years ago virtually, as we were talking about executive use of personal agility. It was incredible to hear your story then as well. And, what would you say for inspiration to other leaders if they find themselves going through challenging times? What types of things would you say for encouragement to them and inviting them to apply an approach like personal agility to get through it?
Yeah, absolutely. From a female point of view, like female entrepreneur point of view, I think I would really want to insist that, to try and prioritize what really matters to you most on that particular day, right? Sometimes what I've felt is that, we try to do too many things at one given time, right? So if we can really sit down and understand what is it that we require that's done in that particular day, so that we are able to slowly get by without stressing ourselves. So what we really do is sometimes we get stressed so much trying to do too many things at one given time. So that's something that I would like to share with my other colleagues, as well as if someone looked at me as a successful female entrepreneur, wife, a mom. So that's the kind of approach that I've taken in my life.
Oh, thank you, Naomi. Yeah, I think that's really key, especially as leaders. We come up with troubling times, as we were just talking about a moment ago. How do you be that leader without showing weakness? Though there's something to be said for having vulnerability and authenticity. Where would you say is the balance there as we look to connect with our people and communicate openly while still being a strong leader?
Yeah, I think, like you said, Maria, being authentic, being real, and also being genuine about the situation, I think is very easy for us to buy in people, rather than you try to put a facade on and trying to show the team that everything is okay. But what I've done is And what I would encourage people to do is to be authentic as much as possible, be real, be genuine with your team members, and get their buy-in so that they support with you. They support and be with you at the hardest time, so that when things get better, you have like a solid team, solid structures in place who've been there and helped you when things are really bad. Things are only going to get better.
Yeah, thank you, Naomi. I see that we might have some questions. Peter, any questions from you?
Well, one of the things that I found to be really moving about your story was, COVID hit Sri Lanka very hard because, Sri Lanka lives from tourism, and in particular, it lives from tourism coming from, outside. And of course, with COVID and we practically had a worldwide grounding of aviation, and that was then very hard on the business. And, the COVID crisis has kind of lifted, but things have not settled down in Sri Lanka. And so I'm kind of wondering, how is the situation changed for you, and kind of how is, whether and how personal agility has helped you master it, as you deal with the ongoing changes that you're facing now?
Yeah, Peter. So like you said, from Easter attacks to COVID, and now the financial crisis, right? So how I've been able to navigate the current situation is that I go behind markets that are performing. So I don't hesitate to change the markets that I cater to. So I would really focus on sustaining the business right now, so that later towards this year, when we get our regular clients back. So we've started working with the Russian market. We've started working with Uzbekistan. So countries that we've not worked with before, because we used to really primarily work with the European sector. But if you look at the numbers that's coming into Sri Lanka, they're primarily the countries that I've just told you. So these are some of the tactics that I'm using currently to sustain the business until things get better.
Okay. In Switzerland, I would push my thumbs for you. In the US, I would cross my fingers. So I'm not quite sure what the right gesture is here, but I wish you luck. In any case, I'm actually I've done a lot of work in Sri Lanka, but it's been a long time. I think the last time I was there was before the crisis, and one of the things that I'm dreaming about is having a worldwide personal agility conference hosted in Sri Lanka. So we'll have to find a venue though. So that could be difficult.
That'd be great, yeah.
Do you have any questions for Naomi? Maria?
Yeah, please go ahead and type in the chat any questions you might have for Naomi. We're excited to have her joining us here. And any questions, Naomi is featured in the book, telling her story, talking about how using the personal agility system helped her to overcome challenging times as a leader in her organization. And so, Naomi, I just want to say thank you for sharing with us your story and being so vocal about it. And, I think this is something that really can inspire other leaders, especially leading in challenging times. I'm curious, what motivates you? Because I see your posts on social media all the time, and I always see that you're committed to excellence, and you're always looking at providing the best end user experience for everybody that you work with. And I'm curious, where does your personal motivation come from? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I guess personal motivation, like you said, Maria, because I believe in, if I don't do it, who's going to do it, right? Because I see, being a Sri Lankan woman coming from the South Asian region, our priorities are different. So how do we come out of who we are and the struggles, and to shed a light on other people's lives? That's what I'm trying to do. So if you see my LinkedIn post, I would always, try and keep it going, keeping inspiring people, look at where can we travel tomorrow. So things like that is, trying to inspire people. That probably is my motivation to move forward.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Naomi. We appreciate you joining us. Yeah, and you just want to open up the floor for reflections. So, we've heard from several people already today. You started off hearing with Pete talking about personal agility for veterans, with Ben talking about how he's been using it as a leader and executive, and Naomi sharing her story as well. Just want to open up the floor for some comments on what are your thoughts, any reflections so far. So please do raise your hand, comment in the chat, throw up some jazz hands. Let us know any comments or thoughts you have and reflections.
So I'm just going to say, I'm really looking forward to when Walter comes up on stage, because Walter was also doing a company turnaround as he was doing personal agility, and this whole topic of kind of how do I appear as a leader when I'm talking to my staff when we're challenged. I think that's a really interesting question. And I think there's more than one possible right answer to that one. So I'll be really looking forward to hearing Walter's perspective on that one, as Walter tells his story.
Wow, thank you, Peter. Yeah, it really did surprise me, I would say, the results that we're seeing in business. That wasn't something I necessarily anticipated, because we think of Agile and we think of Agile as something that the teams are using, right? But personal agility really does work as a leadership framework. And so, as we look at the application, as we look at, what's possible, as we look at that foundational element, Peter, I'm curious, what were your kind of first realizations when we started seeing this applying at that leadership level? And when did that first stand out to you as something that was key?
Well, we have a tool called the stakeholder canvas. Okay. And the stakeholder canvas evolved out of patterns from doing market research to create new products. But what I discovered, and I actually did this through a couple of iterations, and the first ones failed, and then as I did it more, with more companies, I got better at it, is, this is also where I started to appreciate the importance of dialogue, of communication, this asking powerful questions and, or clarifying questions, and then really listening to the answers. And what I discovered is that when you go into an organization or a department, and you got various stakeholders coming from various directions, and well, let's just say a lot of them argue a lot, okay? And they're all very passionate about what they do. And how shall I say? Sometimes they can't see the forest for the trees, and so they find themselves arguing, even though they don't. Even though they're more in agreement than they're in disagreement. But as I say, they lose sight of that, and then they don't feel heard, and then they get emotional, and then people get upset, and then they kind of get driven in their corners, and then this is where the frustrations come from. And so for me, what I think one of the most powerful things in personal agility is our approach to working with stakeholders and working with other people. Listen before you talk, ask before you tell, ask clarifying questions. And that enables you to create the basis for, first of all, finding a shared understanding. It's a very practical definition of empathy. I listen to you, I listen first to you, and then you listen to me. And that kind of creates a context where it's implicit that we care about what the other person is saying. And that creates a trust and a foundation for alignment. And then when you've got that basis, then it's possible to take a group of people. And that could be, stakeholders in a project, that could be the board of directors in a company. It's really this mechanism is the same. And so that could be a really powerful tool for kind of getting an organization moving in the right direction. And I've seen this pattern now repeating over and over. And I'm at the point now, at least for me, it's pretty repeatable. And I also think I can teach it. And that's part of our leadership development program. Is kind of how do we create alignment in the organization? Okay, and I think if we look at what's how is personal agility going to affect agile transformation? I think one of the big areas we're going to contribute is we're going to make it much easier to create alignment, and that's going to enable decisions that are really decisions and commitments without a lot of politics afterwards, and that's going to enable companies to achieve their goals. And if we combine it with other things like cadence and the ability to process new information, well, then we can respond, we can achieve our long-term goals, but we can also react to new information along the way. And I think that alignment problem and that achieve long-term goal problem That feels like the holy grail of how to run a company. You know, the solution that everyone's looking for, which is really hard to find. And most companies are happy they have a solution at all. And if we could get really good at it, I think there's a lot of power there. Anyway, so it's that for me, you know, personal agility. And I think this is also something that we really just put the pieces together to as we publish the book. So the case studies aren't really there yet. So one of the things I'm really excited about is working with companies, you know, who want to solve the alignment problem, who want to, you know, really, you know, put on that turbocharger and, you know, get a lot of the right stuff done for their customers so that it makes a huge impact on you know, on their own existence, on their customers' lives, you know, that it becomes a genuine win-win situation. And I think that's the potential that we have moving forward.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. And, you know, I think this is one of the things that we're seeing start to emerge is we're seeing that personal agility, it's beyond just an individual being slightly more agile, right? It's not just, oh, I had a better day today and I was a little more balanced with my health and my work. Like, it's more than just that. It's the foundation of a leadership framework. And these are the stories that you're going to see in the book. You're going to see these stories in the book, and you're going to see these stories as real people, just the people, like the people you're hearing today, sharing their experience, what they found that works. And speaking of which, there is a little excerpt on the back by someone by the name of Mr. Alistair Coburn. And I see that he is with us here. Alistair, thank you so much for joining us. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, co-author of the Agile Manifesto, creator of the Heart of Agile and the Heart of Agile Academy, Agile legend, right? Agile legend. Alistair, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Thank you, Maria. I just pulled up the quote from the book so I would know what I'd said about it. I said, "Oh, what did I say? I better know what I said." But I stand behind what I wrote. It's a well-written book, chock full of wonderful practical advice. I watched as some of the clients became ecstatic over their results. I see great self-coaching questions, techniques to become more effective. So it's really a wonderful book. So hi, Peter. Haven't seen you in ages. Love seeing this result of your work.
It has been ages. It was almost surely in Lisbon at the World Agility Forum.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, that's correct. When Maria let me do an impromptu duet with her on stage.
Hey, duets with Maria are a very special experience. Yeah. I've had the privilege of doing one myself.
Yeah.
Well, so that actually brings up an interesting point, because Alistair, when we were talking and presenting together at the Experience Agile conference, it was about how Agile marketing fit in with the Heart of Agile. And then Peter, when you and I were presenting at the Experience Agile conference the following year, we were talking about personal agility. And then come full circle, we now offer the personal agility system, and we talk about how that fits in with the Heart of Agile. And
right.
look at
I just happen to have, for those who aren't familiar with it, the coffee mug with "This is everything you need to know about the Heart of Agile" is those 4 words. If you haven't seen it, I distilled Agile down to 4 words: collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. And there is no more. And it's not a framework, and it's not a technique, and it's not a process. It's just 4 words. And it turns out you can milk those 4 words like forever. And so things like personal agility just fits so naturally in it. And you'll notice, Peter, maybe also under collaborate, the key phrase is
quality of listening. I like that.
The quality of listening. And this is like, if the people ask, why was the Agile Manifesto meeting so unusually productive, given that there were 17 middle-aged type A men in the room? Like, why did we not just have a cat fight for 2 days? Like, this is actually the big mystery. Like, why did we just sit and talk to each other? I have never been in a meeting where the quality of listening was that good. And after like years and years and years of just wondering why it worked, I call it a generosity in listening. So we had people who were like at a technical level, not personal level, technical level, were sworn enemies, like really didn't like each other's work, And there was never any attack. And I recall this because one of them, says to the other, like, what are you trying to do with that? And the other person's kind of explaining. And the first person didn't like try to bring them down. They tried to get at like, what was the idea behind the idea? And when they got the idea behind the idea, they said, oh, I'm in alignment with that. Like, I think your direction of doing it isn't going to work, but I have no problem with the idea that you're after. And boom, we were all on the same side of the table. So I call that a generosity in the listening, where you're looking to interpret their words in a way that you assume that they're well-intentioned and smart. And then you look for what's that, such that maybe there some decisions they made you don't agree with, but you agree with the idea behind the idea. I've like never seen that. So that's the basis of this phrase, right? The quality of listening. So that's if somebody says, how can we get started? I just go, increase the quality of listening, just turn it up. And then you turn it up in yourself, and then you see if you can turn it up in the people around you, right? And then you get that thing that you were talking about with the empathy and the leadership and all, so that's why that's on my mug, right? If I get one sentence, that's the sentence I get.
This sentence resonates with me deeply.
Oh,
I mean, I actually think, personal agility at the fundamental level, it teaches you to do two things. The first one is to listen, and the second is to ask good questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are good questions in the book, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So does anybody, as Maria said, does anybody happen to have a question for me while I'm just visiting and waving, saying good things about the book?
Please do type your questions in the chat, or feel free to raise your virtual hand in Zoom. I see a comment here. It's like the old quote, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in that proportion. Thank you.
Oh, very nice. Very nice, Gordon. Nice.
Yeah.
So I will mention in a very strange turnabout of events, I'm writing technical books again, which is very weird for me, because I sort of stopped programming. I mean, the last time I did industrial programming was in the mid-90s, did my own programming in the early 2000s. But I stopped publishing in 2006 because I hate the publishing houses and all of those companies. They're just like, yeah, they just don't work. So I said, I'm not writing again till I get my own publishing outlet. And that was in 2006. And last year, a friend of ours helped me and created Humans in Technology Press. So now I'm back on writing literally as fast as I can. I've written 3 practice books, if you will, and I'm now starting, and I'm going back to I call it the simplifying series, simplifying things, the first was 80%, 20% of the technique gets you 80% of the result. So let's go find a good 20% to get people started with. Should be simple. Get them a good baseline, and then they can go exploring after that. So I'm actually rolling back to object-oriented design, software design. Then we're doing hexagonal architecture. Those are both straight up programming books. And then I'll get into simplifying use cases, of course, simplifying project management. And in each of these, just pick out, and there'll be one simplifying collaboration. You can see there's like a ton of these that I could do. So that's what's up in my life. And so it's interesting for me to see you guys come out with this book, and it puts a bit more fire under me to come up with mine. So maybe somebody has a question, if that gives you a different orientation of where to ask any questions.
Yeah, opening up the floor. This is an Ask Alistair Anything opportunity. I see a question or comment from Walter here. Hearing you, Alistair, it sounds like it's all about something human while doing business.
Staying human.
Staying human. Yes, staying human while doing business. Is it?
Yeah, that's Walter. You're straight up correct. My company is called Humans and Technology, and it was a question about how to use humans to be more, how to use technology to be more human. And especially in the early days, people would hire me for the technology expertise and then keep me around for the human side. So they wouldn't hire me for the human side. They didn't hire me as a coach. They hired me because they knew something about object-oriented or project management or something tech. But then because I do those things that, we heard Peter talking about, and Maria and me, is you just keep the lines of communication open between the people, and everything goes better, and then the bosses can tell that this is a better place, like this is working better. And even if they don't understand why, they still sense it. And so that's still the case since forever. And I think even more important these days, and workers are expecting it. I would say there's been a shift in the last 10 years in the workforce that people literally expect their workplace to be humane. And if it's not, they get annoyed and they either leave, or they talk about leaving, or they do the quiet quitting. But they expect leaders to have empathy, and leaders to be listeners, and leaders to let them share their ideas. And they expect open communication. It's part of the expectation now. So it's not like leadership is different than before. Good leaders have always talked about empathy and listening. To me, the difference is that the workforce now expects it base level. Yeah. So
Yeah, I think that's a really good
riffing on that comment.
I think that's a really good point, Alistair. And, that's a lot of what we're getting to with personal agility, is looking at the human side and getting back to the individual. And I think that if we can focus on that, a lot of other things are really going to fall into place. And I see another question here in the chat. Gordon said, I have said many times that when I'm training, you can actually boil Agile down to 2 words: fast feedback. Whatever your framework or approach, when you're thinking about the next change or improvement, the question is, will it shorten your feedback loop? If the answer is yes, it's probably the right thing to do. If the answer is no, it isn't. Thank you, Gordon. Alistair, thoughts, comments?
So I want to riff on that, because that's superbly phrased, fast feedback. And I feel it leaves out something that when people talk about Agile, they leave out every single time. People tend to think of Agile as being the incremental development portion of the manifesto, but fully half of the manifesto says improve the collaboration and interactions between the people. And so that's why if you say fast feedback, that certainly is true. Deliver, reflect, improve picks up the fast feedback. And the question is, what is the collaborate about? Now, you can say collaborate helps you get faster feedback, and that's true. But there's something about increasing the humanity of the project, and there's also collaboration helps you get better ideas to start with, as well as faster feedback. And so I want to make sure when people talk about Agile, they don't skip over fully 50% of the manifesto was about collaboration and interactions. So yes, on the fast feedback, and don't ever forget about the people.
Yeah, thank you, Alistair.
No,
Yeah.
Alistair, I'd actually like to ask you about that, because this somewhere along the line I saw a talk from you where you talked about what are the origins of the Scrum Master. Because if you look at the first Scrum paper, it doesn't have a Scrum Master, and you said, well, a group of developers saying, we have a lot of bureaucracy in our company. Let's designate one person to deal with the bureaucracy. Okay, so the rest of us can work. And that was kind of the genesis of the Scrum Master role. Now, in the meantime, a lot of people have kind of thought, well, the Scrum Master is kind of a shrunken project manager, and we keep whittling away from the things that a project manager does, and whatever's left is what the Scrum Master does. Although in the meantime, we've also had the rise of Agile coaching. And in fact, some people would say, an Agile coach is kind of a non-branded term for a Scrum Master. So, how do you see the rise of the Scrum Master?
That's really great.
As function in the company?
That's really great. It's funny, I did not notice that the absence of the Scrum Master role in the first Scrum paper, but I think as I play that in my head, yeah, that's right. I'm sure you're right.
Well, I could be wrong on that. I don't remember it, but I'd have to go back and look. But while you're answering the question, I'll go look it up.
Yeah, no, I think you may be right, but because I was a certified Scrum Master for years, and the way I taught it, but I'll give you two little things here. The way I taught it was, imagine you're laying down the tar on a road, right? So you've got that big thing with the steel wheels, right? That are 2 round drums that smooth out the tar, right? And you've got a driver, and the driver's like driving along. Now the driver has to stop the thing and get out and take the twigs out of the tar, right? And then get back in, and then roll it forward, and then get out again, and then take out the twigs and the branches from the tar, and then get back in again. Well, you don't do that. You have a second person whose sole job is to take the twigs out so that the vehicle could go at a constant speed, right? So now you take the same thing with the development team or any work group. And so the way I phrase the Scrum Master role is it's a good idea, right? It's a good idea. It's a good idea if someone has some spare capacity to run around the organization and chase down those things that are slowing everybody else down so that everybody else can go at full speed. So that's been my definition of Scrum Master since forever. Now, there was a moment before which there wasn't the description in the Scrum Guide of the Scrum Master as the teacher of Scrum. Like the keeper of the process, which knocks me out because it's the no process. And I think that Ken Schwaber just had an argument and a bad meal one day and woke up in the middle of the night or the next morning and said, God damn it, I'm gonna fix that, and then wrote it right into the Scrum Guide that the Scrum Master is the keeper of the process and the teacher of Scrum. And that when that paper came out, like that hurt my head. I was going, there is no process to keep, and why do you assume that everybody needs teaching, right? So yes, I guess so, you know. So there was that moment shift, but I have never ever lost my original definition, which is a chief impediment remover. Just and that's where you can get rotating Scrum Masters, right? They could take a turn, right? Everybody has got a turn on deck to free up some time to chase down impediments. So everybody else on the time can go full speed, right? And so when you have this view of what is a Scrum Master, I think it frees you up from a lot of noise about the topic.
Alistair, I love that definition. I think that in its simplicity, there's brilliance in the simplicity. Like,
thank you.
Yeah.
So did I understand that correctly? The chief twig remover, is that kind of what the
chief twig remover? I love that. Well, you have to be careful because I say chief impediment remover because the problem is if you say the job of the Scrum Master is to remove impediments, is a servant leader, you open the door for programmers going, coffee, impediment, I don't have enough coffee, Scrum Master, right? And remove this impediment, right? We don't want this kind of a servant, right? That's not the intention of servant leader. It's not the intention of the twig remover, right? So it's very easy to get, like, for some cynical type person to flip it and take advantage of it that way.
Yeah, well, there's another one of your quotes, which I really like, is any good idea will be forgotten, ignored, abused, or misunderstood.
Totally.
And you don't get to choose which.
And you don't get to choose. which. So yeah.
Anyway,
so people don't like the way that Agile has gone because it's been abused and misused and co-opted. It's just a sign of success because I helped write 2 other manifestos and nobody's heard of them. And they've not been corrupted because nobody uses them. So yeah.
So thank you. Go ahead, Peter.
I just want to throw in one more thought, and we also got some fun stuff coming down the chat that maybe we want to pay attention to. You know, I think this whole point of, you know, kind of listening and dialogue and collaboration. Yeah, we said it in the Agile Manifesto, individuals and interactions. But then if you look at the definition of Scrum, it defines process. You know, Kanban doesn't really consider itself to be agile. At least that's not my understanding. It's kind of, well, let's just agree to get better and put cards on the board. And none of them are really giving much guidance about how to do dialogue. Okay, and I think, you know, the whole coaching profession, I really think that's something that kind of emerged out of, you know, the constraints that was agility, is that all of a sudden that, well, we didn't tell you how to do it, but somehow talking to each other has proven to be necessary. And there's a lot of power in asking the right questions. And that's really what you know, kind of what coaching is all about. And I think why the Scrum Master has evolved the way it has. Maybe just the last fun fact, the original roles in Scrum, the Scrum project team, chapter 4.5, the following teams are formed for each new release: management and development teams. Okay, the management is led by the project manager. Development teams are small, with each containing developers, documenters, and quality control staff. So there you have it. No Scrum Master, no product owner, but there was management. and it was
So
called a
I'm gonna need to buzz off, but I see Khalid wrote a lovely little question that I should pick up here. Khalid says, what use case of your material made you proud of your contribution with Heart of Agile? I'm glad I did this moment. So the origin of the Heart of Agile, I was in a friend's kitchen in 2015 in Australia, and he goes, you haven't written anything in a long time. Like, you need to get back out there. You need to do this and do that, and something. And the next advanced Agile masterclass I was teaching, I sketched this out, these 4 words out on the whiteboard, and tested them out and came out with it. So and you'll see it's got a heart in the middle right there. And for me, the heart was related to this word. I have this tattoo, Japanese tattoo, kokoro. Kokoro means heart or essence in Japanese. So I was looking for essence of Agile, roots of Agile, core of Agile, and I selected Heart of Agile. But everybody looks at this, says, I'm really glad that you've put the heart in the center, because it shows, the caring for people. And I go, no, it's just kokoro. No, it's just kokoro. And they go, no, it's heart, right? And so apropos, a moment in some class, and so we do this, like, what do you like? Why do you like Agile? Or what do you not like about Agile? And everybody was going and saying it's improved the humanity of the workplace. It's, the better connection between the people, better community. And at that moment, I realized that if Agile didn't improve anything, if it was exactly the same, if the corporate output was 100% exactly the same, but we had improved the humanity of the workplace, it's a net win. So that was the moment which I switched over and said, okay, wow, you guys are right. So I would have to say that's like the moment, Khalid, when like the penny dropped, that even if there were no like wonderful showing of better projects and better results, the fact that we've increased the humanity of the workplace is a win all by itself. And, I can sleep at night just from that. So thank you for that great question.
Alistair, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Alistair also wrote one of the forwards in the book. So on the back cover, forward in the book, check out the book, pick it up. Would love to invite you to get a copy of the Personal Agility book as well. And a couple years ago, we aligned, I remember, Alistair, we mapped out the Personal Agility system with the Heart of Agile, and it aligns. Right. And so when we look at how it fits, it really is those 4 powerful words: collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. And if you have that, you can do this. It's not so complicated. It really is attainable for everyone. So Alistair, thank you.
The thing about the 4 words is they don't say anything but the 4 words. So they open doors that you can explore behind and say, how do I do that? And so now you get into the Personal Agility system, which says, here's a mechanism, here's some techniques and some for doing that. Whereas the Heart of Agile only just says the 4 words and go figure it out on your own, right? So you have to go add something to it, so you can then go open those doors and go into the Personal Agility system. Hey, everybody, I'm going. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Alistair.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you, Alistair. Appreciate you joining us. And I do see one last question that came up in the chat here. Are there strategies to recommend implementing Agile to an organization that hasn't bought into it yet? And, if we start with the Heart of Agile, it really might be with those words, right? It's looking at how can we increase the quality of our listening? How can we start to expand them? Any final thoughts?
No, awesome. I just agree with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alistair. Have a good one. Awesome. So a little more food for thought: collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. At the heart of Agile, the heart of what it's all about, that's what we're trying to do. And we actually have a mapping of the Personal Agility system with the Heart of Agile. And you know what, Peter, that might be another bonus that we could give out for everyone that joined us here today, is the mapping. Alistair and I did a presentation looking at how that fits together. And we also have some other things that we're going to be sharing with you. We have a training series that is going to be complimentary. We're going to send that out to everyone that has joined us here today. We'll share more about that in just a moment. But up next, we have our next speaker, Jim Hannon. Jim runs the Agile Innovation Lab at Boston University. And one of the things that Peter and I have been exploring over the years is we've been looking at how widespread is agility? How much could we see people applying this in all the different ways? And looking at universities, looking at the next generation is definitely an area that we've been looking at. And so, Jim, we're really excited to be able to get your insights, have your support with the Personal Agility Institute. Can you tell us a little bit more about when did you first hear about personal agility and what does it mean to you?
Well, thanks, Maria. Thanks for having me. I heard about personal agility probably 5 years ago. I had a conversation with Peter in the car one morning, and I said, "This makes sense. This is the missing link between all these agile transformations." I'm an agile coach. I work for a major company in New England, and as I started to look at this in personal agility, I realized that this is something students desperately need. I had a lot of students who were extremely stressed out, and they were going through their master's degree. So just a word about the BU Agile Innovation Lab. I know 1 or 2 people on the phone were actually involved in it. And what we do is we have a conference every year. And as we start to go through the conference, we have Peter talk. We have Joe Justice. Thank you, Joe, for that comment. And as we do this, we talk about personal agility. We talk about all different trends. But one of the biggest trends I see, and it's really not fully understood, it's really not fully communicated, is the idea of personal agility. So I did an experiment with my students. I think I had 7 students in one session. And as I did the students, I taught them personal agility. We did the class, we finished the class, and actually I followed them through their other classes as they went. There was one person who was going back to Saudi Arabia. We had numerous people, someone in Nigeria, and they found great improvement in their scores. They found they were actually able to balance things together, especially with their studies, their family, and all the different things that they have going on. So I said, this is an important thing for us to do. We talk about building personal agility and especially people who are in business. But from my perspective, they've already gone, right? More we can do there, it's great. But we need to get the students, we need to get the basics. So that's the reason why we've done personal agility in BU. And I'm trying to spread it to other colleges as we go.
Oh, thank you, Jim. I think that's incredible. I think, being able to help to provide guidance, provide a framework like this to help students as they're beginning to advance in, discovering what they want to do, figure out those next steps. I'm curious, Jim, is there anything that surprised you about, any feedback from the students or anything that you observed that maybe you hadn't had the assumption of initially?
Well, it's funny, I'm going to relate a story where in the company I work for, I did the personal agility, sort of a mini course with a bunch of managers. And probably 2/3, halfway through it, I said, "Does this make sense?" And they all said, "Yeah, this is the piece that's missing. We're trying to get people who are, quote unquote, they've been working with waterfall for years, they're very set in their mindset, and all of a sudden we can say, okay, you're agile now, and turn the lights on and everyone turns. And that was extremely enlightening. From the student perspective, they really didn't get why we were doing this. But as we started to do this and we started to track them, I have a class now I'm teaching at BU where we brought that in and we've actually said to them, you have to, one of the most common things in project management and agile is people. We have to stress the people aspect of this, because you're not going to get the agile team done. You're not going to get where you need to go. So again, we're bringing back the people as the center of what we had. The real shocking thing was students were actually coming back to me and saying, this makes sense. This is working.
Oh, that's awesome, Jim. I love that. Now, Now, Jim, you've worked with a lot of companies on using Agile, right? You haven't only been exposed to Agile through the university. Can you tell us about some of the challenges you've seen with companies using Agile and how personal agility might be able to help them?
Well, especially with companies where you have people who have been there 10, 15, 20. I've been with companies that have been 25, 30 years. They've been at the company and they've done this every day. I call it the checklist mentality. They come in and they check this, they check that, and they check that. And then they say, I'm done. And to turn around and say, you know what, you have to have personal accountability. You have to have balance in your life. You have to look at the forces that's actually impacting you. One of the biggest challenges that, people who have long seniority in a company, and this is the original conversation. I don't know if Peter remembers it. The original conversation we had when I thought about this and I read about it, I said, this is the key that's missing for most transformations.
Yeah, and I want to invite Peter. I want to invite you to join us here in this discussion here. Tell us more about, as you're talking with Jim, what was really foundational there?
Oh, good grief. It's funny. Jim has a much clearer memory of this conversation than I do, which I guess is a bit embarrassing. When I think about what's foundational in transformations, is to talk about people what they want to achieve. Okay, for us, kind of agility is our profession. We want our companies to be agile. That's for us the goal. But for them, that being agile is a means to the end. So when I meet with well, first of all, what I try to do is talk to actual customers and talk to them about their actual problems, and let them talk about what they're trying to achieve, what's making it difficult, what's frustrating, what are they worried about, and kind of create that level of empathy that they say, oh yeah, working together is going to be good for me. And if we can if our agile transformations have got a lot of relationships that feel like that, working together is going to be good for us. That just makes everything so much easier. And so I'm not sure, if Jim has got some very specific memories, and I'm not sure if I'm touching on them or not. But for me, that's what's missing from a lot of agile practice that I hear. They say, oh, should we do 2-week sprints or 4-week sprints? Are story points okay or not? Is it okay to talk about projects or not? But that kind of, I don't know, I think a lot of these discussions, they become, lots of heat, not much light, and they don't really help real people move forward with real problems, or real organizations move forward with real problems. So Jim, if I give the ball back to you, am I touching on things that were resonating with you?
And I think, Peter, our first conversation, you were going to give me royalties for the first part. All right.
Was I? I don't remember that.
Kidding. No, I think the bottom line, Maria and Peter, is that we need to focus in on the young, the younger generation, making sure that I talk to students all the time in classes and they talk about agile, but they really don't understand how to do it, how to deploy it, how to actually live it. Personal agility is an excellent way to actually do that.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I really appreciate that. And I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day, and it was around the next generation, like the current generation that is like in the workforce in the heat of it, right? And then the new generation that's coming up, that's coming out of school, and how do we reach them? And you look at the way that companies are maybe attracting talent, it's got to be different these days, right? But even the way that we communicate with educating this next generation, it's going to probably be different. And we just look at the trends on social media and online, and the attention spans just like dropping down to 15-second clips now, I think we're at, for video clips. And so, how do we help to communicate the value of these approaches? And I think this is an opportunity. This is a huge opportunity to be able to create awareness. And one of the things that we're doing, we were talking about this the other day, Jim, is working with St. Leo University here in the Tampa Bay area with their social accelerator program, and looking at how we can help empower veterans and empower other people with personal agility, people at the university, the students, the people that work at the university. And this is something that really could be a foundational concept that can, I think, create groundwork for helping people get clarity, helping people be more focused on the things that are important, and, really bringing that into the educational realm, I think can be really, really powerful. So Jim, curious, where do you see this going? Where do you see the opportunity as we move forward?
Well, I've been involved with a lot of people in the industry, and a lot of people are trying to bring in agility to the classroom, but they're trying to bring in agility where they say, all right, here's Scrum, here's Lean, here's all the different aspects of it. But they don't bring in agility. I teach a class where we do everything in 2-week sprints. We actually depict what a Scrum team would do. And that I think is the next step, is that I talked to, again, a ton of people, and there's people down by you, Maria, who are trying to bring it into different universities, but they don't apply it. They don't try to figure out how to do it. And again, I think a lot of people on this phone, we have students who are younger. And I teach them how to actually do this. So I think it's essential. That's the.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Yeah, I see a lot of comments in the chat. I appreciate everyone joining us, and a lot of these different insights, they really can apply across a variety of different areas. I see a comment here from Scott. He said, as a parent of a high school senior, I could see the great benefit at that level as well. Yeah. I had some interns over the years, and I actually showed them personal agility, and I got a message about maybe a year after one of them had gone back to school, and she said, "Hey, Maria, I just wanted to let you know I still use these techniques, and I've shown my friends, and it's been really helpful." And how cool is that? How cool is that to be able to create that positive impact, to create something that is a simple, lightweight framework to help people being able to manage the things that they do and set that foundation as they move onward. Peter, I'm curious, what do you see as the future with personal agility being expanded into realms such as universities and the next generation? What opportunities are there?
Well, one of the things that really amazed me is as we started sharing personal agility is just how universally useful it is. Okay, I can see, I've got 2 kids who kind of are just putting their teenage years behind them, and this whole issue of kind of self-organization and kind of focusing on the right thing. I think that's hugely challenging for young people. I'm not sure if I want to add the word today to that sentence or not. My memory of how well organized I was when I was 17 isn't all that great. So I'm probably probably think I was more organized than I do now. I think this is an internal challenge. And I see this, when you look at our case studies, they're kind of all over the place. So, I think for us, the challenge is more, kind of how do we get the message out, and how do we share this knowledge with the world so that people can discover it? Okay, because I think that, that really the fundamental message is, I think it was, who was it? It was Senala, one of our ambassadors in Sri Lanka, who first said this. Time is your most precious currency. You only get to spend it once. In fact, I would add to that, you have to spend it. You have no choice about whether you're going to spend your time or not, but you do have a choice about what you spend it on. And some of the things you care about and some of the things you don't. And what we see over and over is that when people spend a bit more of their time on things they care about and a bit less of their time on things they don't, great things happen. So yeah, I think obviously, as kind of the father of personal agility, I have a certain, of course, I have a beautiful boy or a beautiful girl, or whatever this is, but I really do see the potential in just so many different situations, from the very personal to the very professional, where this kind of clarity of purpose and ability to communicate can be really helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Peter.
How about you, Maria? Where do you see this? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I see personal agility being very widespread. I see a lot of groups that we've been talking to, from veteran groups to universities to leadership groups to organizations, and some organizations that have been working toward transitioning to Agile for some time. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars in transitions, and they're still not getting the results that they want and that they hope. And so as we look at this, I think there's a huge opportunity to, really go a little bit deeper more authentically into looking at what really matters, applying this at scale from the individuals to the organizations. I see additional case studies expanding in these different verticals and these different areas, because the thing that I'm noticing, Peter, is that one of the things that I think really stands out for personal agility is that we're seeing that it works. We've got the stories, we're documenting them, and it's just really, really powerful to see the different applications from, working moms that are working from home, trying to balance family, trying to, navigate that, people navigating job transition. We're seeing so many different applications. So I could see this really becoming a lot more widespread. And I think it's a really powerful approach that it's exciting to me to see the empirical results.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is when we start to be able to quantify that. Okay?
Yes.
And especially when we're talking about it in a business context, there's always somebody in the business who wants to see the numbers. And it's like one of the things that I looked at was like we call this the too many meetings problem. What's the impact of going from meeting to meeting to meeting on corporate productivity? And the work I did suggests that, well, out of 100 employees of a company, okay, probably at any given point in time, only about 44 of them are actually doing the work of the company. And the rest of them are either in a leadership and facilitation role that is almost by definition, they don't do the work of the company, or they're trapped in a meeting. Okay, and I talked to someone and she said, well, we have a meeting every 2 weeks. And basically what we do is we use the meeting to kind of remind ourselves what goal we set to achieve by the next meeting, but we haven't had any time to actually do it. So we just kind of have the same meeting over and over and over again. And we never actually get anything done. And so, I did some numbers and it looks to me like, almost any company could probably, out of 100 people, we could probably go from 44 to 66 full-time equivalent actually doing the work of the company if we started making kind of an agile mindset, an agile approach more routine, just by getting rid of the unnecessary meetings and getting direct communication, okay? And, you do the math, and obviously it depends a bit on what you calculate as an employee price. Here in Switzerland, we talk about $200,000 or $300,000 a year per person. It's kind of what the all-in cost is for an employee in a finance or tech company. And gee, 250,000 times 20 employees, that's like 5 million a year. For 100 employees, you got 1,000 employees. There is a lot of money in trapped productivity. That if we could release even half of that potential, the impact for companies would be just huge. So as I say, I think there's a lot of potential here. I think it can be quantified. I think you can make the argument to your manager that, hey, imagine if we could have 50% more power for the same costs compared to what we have now. That, I think, is the promise of agility in general and personal agility in particular.
I appreciate that so much, Peter. And I think that that's really insightful. And looking at it from that perspective and looking at it from clear numbers, that's where I think people will start to really see the results when they start to analyze things like that. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jim. Jim, thank you for joining us. It's been great to have you here. Thank you for all that you do to help communicate the value of personal agility at the Boston University Agile Innovation Lab.
Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Jim. All right. You are hearing so many different stories from the book, stories of how personal agility is being applied in a variety of ways. I just want to, as we get ready to welcome our next speaker in just a moment here, I just want to share, if you haven't yet, would love to invite you to get a copy of the Personal Agility book. It is on Amazon today, and we have done a special price drop on the Kindle version to $1. If you want to get it for $1, this is the day to do that. And also you can get, of course, the paperback or the hardcover book as well. We published through the Business Agility Institute, and Peter and I spent many years writing this book, and I'm so excited about all the amazing case studies and stories we've been able to include. And it really just speaks to what's possible when applying this approach. So please share this link with friends, family, colleagues. We would love to make this a best-selling book today, and also have it very affordable on the Kindle version for anyone who are about personal agility. All right. Up next, we have our next speaker is Thomas Hubbock. Thank you for joining us today. How are you? Wonderful to have you with us. How's it going?
Now would be a good time to unmute.
Yeah, exactly. Hello, Maria. Hello, Peter. Can you hear and understand me well?
Yes, we can.
So I would like first to say a huge, huge thanks to both of you for constantly inspiring me with this amazing book. There is rarely a day where I do not look into it. And there is certainly no day passing by where I'm not inspired by the messages in this book. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, tell me more about how you and Peter first connected and how the conversation around personal agility began.
You know what Peter did with me? Peter did a coaching session with me without me being aware of it. It was an incredible experience. I was here in Spain, like I am today. I was in fact a bit hurried, and we were talking about what my message of unbossing is about, what I really want to achieve with it, what's the purpose, and what are the targeted customers and companies. And Peter did an amazing job with that. So that was my special experience with Peter. And yeah, I don't know if you are interested in my personal story.
Yeah, please do tell us more.
So I'm a German, and I started in the financial field, very serious business, auditing with Deloitte. And I come from that world initially. Then I entered the sugar business, and I landed a couple of years later as CEO of a French-Belgian sugar company with around 2,000 people, 8 factories. So as you can imagine, it's the worst combination of all, being German and being finance-driven. It doesn't come more bossy than that. And so that's exactly how I started up with mid-30s, becoming CEO in a very, very conservative business. And of course, it did go spectacularly wrong during the first 12 months. And what I mean with going spectacularly wrong is not that our business suffered, thanks God not, but I got pushback. I got tremendous pushback from my people. So I was lucky enough to have the best team in the industry. And these people told me, listen, Thomas, if you think you can tell me and my team how in detail to do our jobs and come over every couple of days and check if we do the job as you wish, then you can as well do it yourself. And me and my team, well, no problem, Thomas. We will find employment somewhere else. We are one of the best teams in the industry, and so further and so forth. And that did lead to real deep thought process in me, where I said, look, Thomas, if you go ahead in this way, you will demotivate your best people. In the worst case, you will actually lose these people. And in the second worst case, you will virtually lose them because they will become zombies. They will just do Dienst nach Vorschrift, we call that in Germany. Yeah? That is kind of 9 to 5 and going through the motions.
Work to rules.
And sorry, Peter?
We call that work to rules in English.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Work to rules.
Dienst nach Vorschrift. Okay.
Dienst nach Vorschrift. Exactly.
Yeah.
So Anyway, I was thankfully smart enough to took the right lessons out of it. And from then on, I experimented with giving my people more and more and more autonomy and freedom. And every time, so that was very successful. And I was, of course, very encouraged by the success. So I got more and more brave. And all these things did lead to tremendous successes, which is, for example, today the most modern bioethanol factory in Europe, which is, for example, the international expansion of sugar specialties, something unheard of in the sugar industry, because usually you have a very, very local business with sugar. We sold to Starbucks in Seattle. We sold to Japan, and so further and so forth. And all the things I did was, doing that without knowing a person like Peter, without knowing a person like you, Maria. I did it out of gut feeling. And today, what I'm doing since 3 years is I spread the message also to other companies, together with my consulting network, my consulting company. We call ourselves the Unbossing Company. And unbossing is for us the journey from command and control. So that is the boss, a command and control boss, towards inspire, coach, and trust, which is how we see an unbossed leader function. I see it. Thanks, Maria. Indeed, this term unbossing, we like it because it leaves nobody indifferent. It leaves nobody cold. Either you have indeed this reaction, I love it, or you have at least a reaction, what does that mean? You don't need any leaders anymore. What's this nonsense about? Yeah. So, but the term leaves nobody unmoved or indifferent. So this is what I'm doing today, together with a team of, at the moment, 12 people. And I repeat, constantly inspired by the messages of your book.
Oh, Thomas, thank you so much for sharing that. And, you know, I think what you described is something many of us have experienced in work environments, right? With that boss dynamic and that command control environment, especially in a traditional project management environment. And really appreciate your sharing your insights. And I love seeing your posts on LinkedIn. I appreciate the support for personal agility and the things we're doing. And, you know, I love that initiative, unbossing. I love that. It's really about back to, again, we're seeing this theme over and over again today. It's empowering the people, really.
Absolutely, Maria. And that is also the people for whom we are doing that. I have seen, I would say, hundreds of people in their mid-20s entering the corporate world, entering huge names in the corporate world. And I have seen these people passionate, motivated, smart, wanting to change the world. And then I saw the same people again after, let's say, 2.5 years, 3 years. And it was a shock. When they used to be tigers with 25, they were scared cats, scared house cats with 28. And the point is, these were in principle the same people with the same passion, with the same skills, with the same willingness. But the system destroyed this soul. And I have seen that over and over and over again. And these are really the people which I want to make smile again, and also smile on Monday mornings.
Yeah. Wow. Thomas, I've seen that same thing. I've seen people fresh out of college get on site with a company so motivated, so much like a little pep in their step, a little sparkle in the eye. And then months later, I've seen this happen in team meetings, and they bring up an idea and people are like, oh, we don't want to do something different, or oh, pipe down over there. You're making more work for us to actually do more stuff. And you went from someone who was motivated, who was passionate, who was excited to be there, to slumped at the computer, just like going through the motions. And wow, like that is so real. And thank you for all the work you're doing to help make a dent there. And, love your words on personal agility and how you see this helping to make a positive impact there as well.
Yeah. And indeed, again, to that, Maria, because we are talking about people with a lot of passion and a lot of creativity. And you know what the worst thing is? When they get cynical. Because all this creativity has to go somewhere, right? These people are still creative. And so you have these kind of discussions, when you ask them, oh, by the way, what's with agility? Oh my God, Thomas. Don't get me started. Yeah, we are agile since 2 years. McKinsey did it. And oh Jesus, tomorrow is our next stand-up. And I tell you what, I will call in sick leave. I cannot take it anymore. So you get these kind of cynical reactions even out of that people. And again, it's for them we are doing it. And talking about the leaders, I even see leaders who are desperate to change it, but who are also imprisoned by that system, which is the only system they have ever known, which is the only system they have ever learned about at Harvard Business School, and which is the only world in which they feel, I wouldn't say comfortable, but in which they feel confident with their steering committees and with their project groups and with their organizational setup. And also they have talks with me and tell me, yes, Thomas, I love your message and I love your vision, but I have zero clue how to get there. So it's not only about the poor employees who are imprisoned by that system, it's most of the leaders who are as well imprisoned. And I'm even talking about CEOs here.
Yeah. Wow.
So one of the things that you and I have talked about is, kind of what are the driving forces? What are the things that are motivating top leadership to make change right now? What is the the biggest issues on their radar screen? And maybe before we move on, would you like to share maybe one or two insights? What do you think? If so, you're a former CEO, you're part of the CEO club, you go to the golf. I'm not quite sure where you go, but wherever, and you're chatting with your colleagues. What's on their mind? What are they worried about moving forward?
Peter, is a brilliant question. And for me, there are two typical cases. And let me talk about the ideal case. The ideal case is the CEO who has read the book of Maria and Peter. And that happens. Or has read the book of Steve Denning. Or has read Humanocracy of Gary Hamel and Michele Zanini. And this CEO has and shares this insight and says, Thomas, I love it. And how can you help me to get there? That's the best case. And then I come to the more prevalent case, which is not the best case, but the more prevalent case is HR, the chief HR officer. And that is where the pressure comes from. And now imagine a company, huge brand name. Let's talk about German car manufacturers. I don't mention brands, but companies who were used to get boatloads of job applications from top talent. And suddenly, it is not anymore the top talent layer who is applying. And suddenly, can you imagine these top talents, even if they come for a couple of months, they are leaving again, unheard of. Yeah? And they are puzzled. Huh? They say, we pay you top salary, we give you company cars, we give you that, we give you this, and you are leaving. And where are you going? To a startup somewhere in Amsterdam, where you earn half of what you earn here? This is crazy. So in other words, there are these discussions in the executive board where even the CEO becomes aware of the problem and says, what's with the talent machine? The former chief human resources officer made that without any problems. And you and your people, you suck. So that is where it's the most prevalent case, I have to say, which I experience. And that is the pressure comes from there. Top talent is not willing anymore to come, or if top talent comes, it's gone again after 6 months, Peter.
You know, when I asked the question, I kind of knew what the answer was, because we talked about this before. But what's interesting is, when you hear an answer like that, then you go and listen to the market and look for confirmation. And I was just at a talk given by the leaders of the Agile transformation at a large, well-known Swiss bank. I'm not going to name any names here because they didn't even say this on stage. This was kind of, off, afterwards. And they said, well, the real reason we're doing this is the talent wars. Okay, because the two realizations. First of all, the fintechs were able to develop these super lightweight, easy to use, get signed up in 2 days kind of applications, and there you had to do it manually. And it took them weeks to onboard a new customer, and so they weren't being seen as innovative because they had nothing in the digital space. And the other thing is, nobody wanted to work for a plodding dinosaur. And so exactly the problem that you have. So the innovation problem: are we relevant for our customers? And the the talent war problem: are we interesting for our staff? I got that 100% confirmed yesterday. So I'm totally on board there. So Thomas, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. This has been really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to our first project together, where somewhere we do an unbossing powered by personal agility or something like that. I think the world needs that, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you so much. Maria, I believe we have our next speaker is from France. Is that correct?
Yes. And Thomas, thank you again. Great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Yep. So take care and thank you. So I'm going to give it my best French accent, JY, better known as Jean-Yves. And Jean-Yves and I had a great conversation. I think it was 2 days ago, talking about personal agility at very interesting places in the organization, probably not too far away from the places that Thomas was talking about. So at this point, I think rather than borrow your thunder, I'd like to pass the talking stick over to you and let the thunder roll. So could you tell us, kind of who? Oh, by the way, Jean-Yves is also head of the Business Agility Institute in France, if I've understood this correctly, who is obviously the publisher of our book. So kind of a double thank you to the BAI. And so Jean-Yves, what are you working on these days? Okay. And how does personal agility fit into that?
So first, I would like to thank you to invite me. Inviting a French guy to talk about that is very very rare. So I take the opportunity. Thank you very much. So 2 things that I would like to share, mainly as the 2 things related to personal agility, of course. The first one is really personal. I didn't talk to you about Peter because I wanted to create give you a surprise about that. And the other one is about a financial institution where I used personal agility. So 3 years ago, when I discovered personal agility, I was really exhausted. I was really as Peter said once, I had an agenda even during the weekend. And so I was working a lot, and at the same time I was growing my kids alone because my wife died a few years ago. So I was not taking care of me at all. When I discovered personal agility, I start to step back and say, okay, I need to do something, and I need to. Why don't I try this this tool? It seems interesting, and seems asking the right questions. And frankly, it worked. So I did some meditation, all the things, but it worked to help me balance my life. And so I'm since then I'm using personal agility, and 1 year ago, about 1 year ago, I realized that in the what matters there was something missing, and I was not really clear about a few things. And I add one what matter subject, if you want, and frankly, currently I think I have the right balance. And I realized that asking question every week about what matters and what is urgent and important was a way to listen to myself, and really figuring out what I was really willing to be. So thank you very much, both of you, for that. It was very helpful. The other thing that I'm going to explain is the financial institution where I used personal agility in the transformation, major transformation in Poland, where we went from hierarchical way of working organization to a self-managed one. So it's and personal agility was and is still a pillar of this transformation. In order to, it was one of the pillars. There are other pillars I will explain a little bit, but one of the pillars was personal agility, because people wanted to really be more autonomous in the way they were deciding, they were doing things, and I thought the personality was really interesting for that. And a few weeks ago, when we discussed with Peter about this event, I asked several managers from this Polish company, and managers and teammates about their main impact of personal agility on their day-to-day job. And I collected many things that are really things that they told me, and the things that really impact them. The first thing they mentioned is the clarity of purpose. As you said, that clearer priorities, because with the discussion, with the dialogues, with themselves and with their partners, it was cleaner in their head what were the priorities. And for the managers, they told me that being clear in their head was helping them be clear to give task or to explain task, what they wanted from the others. So they said that when one manager told me that when I request something from them, or then when I say what matters for them, it's really clear in my head, so it's clear for my team, and we all understand each other. One thing that I didn't realize even when I was there, because I stopped the project in June, and then only the Polish guys are working, so I'm not speaking Polish, everything was in English or French. They realized the importance of the tasks that are not tangible, that are not tangible results, such as discussing with the team at the coffee machine, spending times for nothing, but indeed for a lot, creating the relationship. So So for the managers, it was really, for most of them, it was really a discovering something. The other effect was they realized that they need to take some time for them, all of them. And as you know, because of the Ukrainian war, Poland is really impacted. Really, there is a huge impact, especially in the financial area, so banking, and even though they told me that they are feeling better. They're facing that, but they are feeling better. They're feeling empowered. They're feeling that they can do something to overcome that. Most of them feel that they do things and they finish things. You know, most of the time, these people were opening their WIP limit was very high, if you want. Okay, if I take an agile way of saying that they were opening a lot of tasks, but not having the impression of finishing them. With the personal agility, they really feel like they finished things, and they realized they were doing so.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. And, you know, I think it's so powerful to hear some of these different stories and applications, and would love to explore documenting some of these as case studies as well. As we get ready to move on to the next speaker in just a few moments, just want to ask any final thoughts as you look at personal agility. What do you think does this mean for other organizations? What do you see as possible for other companies or leaders that might be, like you said, not spending the time for themselves, or, you know, maybe being off balance or things like that? Any additional thoughts that you wanted to share?
They learn how to listen to each other. So we were referring to what we said before, listening and helping with questions when they coach each other, because in this bank, they coach each other, okay, using the personal agility. They learn how to listen and to help. So the relationship between the people in the team is changed radically. The other thing is that we also deployed a program specific to managers about listening and questioning. And it was closely related, and everybody could understand that the posture of the managers and the posture of everybody was changing, with a lot of listening, with a lot of asking questions, and all these kind of things. So I think that's it's, from my point of view, if you go beyond agile, meaning you go to a self-management organization, a more autonomous organization. Personal agility is one of the pillars you must use.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Peter, any final thoughts or questions?
Well, I have a feeling that we got a little bit behind in the program, and so we may have squished you a little bit. You said you wanted to share a surprise, and I don't want to. Did you get a chance to share what you wanted to share, or are we?
No. So it's going to take too much time. So next
okay.
time on face to face when you come back to France.
Tomorrow, tell me.
So, because Peter has been working in a city which is 30 kilometers from where I live, in southwest of France.
I was an exchange student to France when I was 17. Very, very close by. So it'll be almost like going home.
Awesome. Amazing. Jean-Yves, thank you so much for joining us.
Now, one thing that I would like to add.
Sure.
Which is very important, because the head of transformation for this bank, who was also in charge of the deployment of agile at scale at this company, told me, with personal agility, we are moving from doing agile to being agile. I think this is key.
Awesome.
I love that. Beautiful.
Love that. Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining us. We're hearing from so many amazing speakers, people that are sharing their experience, what they're finding, the benefits of personal agility. And so just want to encourage you, if you haven't already, please pick up a copy of the book. We are so excited to have this available on Amazon today. If you want to get the Kindle version, we have a special price today, $1 for that, or get the soft cover or hard cover. So thank you, Jean-Yves. Appreciate you sharing your experience, and would love to hear more about that in the future and be able to maybe even document some case studies to help show the path, help other people to see how they can move forward. All right, next up we have Walter Stolzer. Walter, I've got to say, over the last couple of years, Peter's been talking about your story with personal agility. We had you join at the Experience Agile event a few years ago, sharing about your experience as an executive using Agile. And Walter's in the introduction of our book. So Walter, can you tell us a little bit about how has personal agility impacted you and your company, and what were some of the benefits that you found?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I'm pretty proud to be here. However, Maria, I will not talk about what you are asking, since I brought a great marketing trick with me, not talking about the story of my company, because everybody can read it in the book. So buy the book and then you can read it. So I'd rather talk about what it changed in my, let's say, role as a leader or as a manager of the company. I mean, yes, to give you a short introduction about the story in the book and what it's all about. It's getting from red ink to black ink in the short time period your liquidity gives you to survive to do that, which is, in my case, it was about 2 months. So that is the whole story. So how you get safe in 2 months, take personal agility, organize yourself, or organize the chaos in your head, and by using personal agility, and then try to do what I rather talk now is try to lead or try to understand what leading in a situation like that, or in a situation that came right afterward, which was the pandemic, means. And I'd like to share a few thoughts about that, since Peter also gave me this keyword when he some time ago earlier in the talk. So what did I learn? So first I learned, we were hearing that leadership is more about being vulnerable or stuff like that. I learned it's not so much about being vulnerable. However, if you don't know exactly where to go, because you don't even have time to think about where to go, it's good to have an idea how to go there where you don't know where. So and I think that is something that an agile mindset, and of course personal agility, as I would call it, a tool, as I already said, to organize the own chaos in the head or in the reality, helps you to get there. So and what does it do? Basically, it says, well, do one step after another, organize what really matters, think about it, do things that do really matter. I mean, it's pretty easy. What's in there, it's pretty, if you read it, it's totally natural. However, most of us don't do it normally. So therefore, it's such a great thing if you experience what happens if you actually do what you basically know what to do, but never do it. So as I said, the first thing is to discover that leadership is not so much about saying where to go. I mean, of course, we are used that the leader knows he is the rock or she's the rock and knows where to go and knows where it goes. And this Northern Star that tells everybody, let's go here, and everybody follows. No, it's not that. It's more, I have a plan how to go there. One step after another, doing what really matters. Even changing what really matters. The question about how much did you change for Pete in the earlier some time ago was from me. So I was interested how he did that. And then one very interesting question arises. So if it's so easy just to do one step after another and do things that really matters, and if we agree that people normally have good feeling about what really matters, is there any reason for leaders? Do we need leaders? Do we need them? If it's all clear and everybody can do it by his own. And here I'd say, yes, it needs leaders. Why? And this is a great lesson I didn't learn from Personal Agility, but from Derek Sievers. It's basically one has to be the fool that starts. And that's, I think, the only difference between the leader in a situation where you don't know exactly where to go, but how to go. Somebody has to start going. And everybody who knows Peter knows what I'm talking about when I talk about Derek Sievers. It's about film lessons from leadership from a dancing man, which is basically somebody starts to dance, another starts to dance with him, and basically a whole movement starts. So I could copy you the link in the chat if you like to see the movie.
You know, Walter,
Not now.
that's one of Peter and I's favorite videos is the leadership lessons from the dancing guy, right? And
yeah, I mean, if you look at that, basically, you know what to do as a leader. You have to be the fool who starts and to detect the first follower who follows. And then actually the rest is by itself. It starts to be a movement that is self-generating, autopoietic, or however you want to call it. So, I mean, basically, these are the two things I learned from the experience of saving my own company and from the experience of the pandemic. You don't have to know where to go, you have to go how to go there. And the second is somebody has to start going, which is the leader, was me. So well, basically, that's the things I brought with you. It was 3 things I don't tell about the story. I give you these 2 insights. And if you have any question, then you ask them now, and I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you, Walter. I appreciate that so much. Additional insights to learn more about Walter's experience turning his company around from near bankruptcy, saving a $6 million revenue company. It's in the book, the Personal Agility book. So we'd love to invite you to get your copy of the book, read more about his story. And, you know, Peter, you had a favorite quote from Walter. Do you want to share what your favorite quote was that we have in the book?
God, you know, there's always the favorite quote. One very good quote. I just got a new favorite quote from Walter, which is leadership is somebody who starts dancing and invites everyone to the dance. And the other thing that we took home from Walter, when we were actually working together, I think it was, I want to end each week with satisfaction and start each week with confidence. And in the meantime, you know, we see how iterations are getting shorter. Today, I think Walter would phrase it, today, I want to end each day with confidence, with satisfaction, end each day with satisfaction and start each day with confidence. And, you know, probably by the time we get through the end of the year, he'll be saying, well, I want to start the morning with confidence and finish it with satisfaction, you know, as we get faster and faster. So anyway, ending with satisfaction, starting with confidence, it's a great feeling. It's a great place to be, especially when you're that leader. You know, I'm just thinking of the company that I talked to today, and there's so much fear in the room. They're so afraid that they're not doing the right thing, that their customers don't want it, that they don't know. I hear this over and over. Are we working effectively? Are we working on the right thing? Are we getting are we spending our money well? Are we getting our money's worth? You know, all that fear in the room can make it very, very difficult to really focus on the task at hand. So I like how Walter phrased it, you know, clear, succinct, end the day with satisfaction, start the day with confidence.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. And I see a question in the chat. Thank you, Gordon. This is a good one. Said I have a question, but not sure who for, so it's up for grabs. What advice or modifications would you give for someone with ADHD? For example, people with executive function issues who struggle with prioritization, longer term planning, time blindness, resisting distractions, etc. What do you think? I think this is a challenge a lot of people face with.
I think this describes a lot of people I know, especially in the day and age where we've got these things that kind of are constantly blinking. And look at this, it's already demanding attention, even though I told it to be quiet 5 minutes ago, and it's spam to boot. So, I think what we're all doing is kind of, there are so many stimuli competing for our attention. And so for me, what I think personal agility is trying to do with the priorities map is make it easy to remember what you want to be doing. Okay, it's not about telling you what you have to do. It's saying this is what I want to do. Okay, and we've got all these distractions, and what do? Well, if we get distracted, at some point we're going to say, oh, wait a minute, I'm distracted. What do I want to be working on? And that's the moment to take a look at your priorities map. And there we've got that one card at the top of the today column. And if I only get one thing done, that's the one I want to get done. So let's go back to work on that if I can. And if an interaction comes along and I have to work on something else, well, life happens. Now, go back to your priorities map, take a look. So, who wrote this? Gordon, I really think the personal agility system was conceived of for people like the person you described. Having difficulty staying focused. Okay, let's give something to focus on to kind of keep bringing us back on course. And it kind of works at multiple different levels. There's the, what am I working on today? What am I trying to accomplish this week? What do I want to, what are my long-term goals? And what's the balance between my long-term goals so I don't get totally focused on this one and forget about that one?
Yeah, thank you for that, Peter. I think that's just phenomenal insight. And that's one of the reasons we broke the book up into 2 sections. So part 1 is how to lead yourself. Part 2 is leading others. So it's starting with how can I get clear on what really matters and where my time and attention and focus goes. And then how does that extend and expand to a team or project or my organization? So yeah, great question. Thank you. Walter, it's always a pleasure. We are ready to move on to our next speaker. Any final words here, Peter?
Oh, I was just going to say one of the things I really liked about Walter's case study is Walter also introduced the use of cadence in leadership. Okay, where the leadership team was actually working in 3-week cycles, and they kind of had their long-term goal, they had their immediate goal, they had a couple of tasks or a couple of short-term goals that they wanted to accomplish. And by having this cadence and focusing on tangible results, that enabled them to move forward. That enabled them to kind of, reflect on where they are and think about what they wanted to do next. And I think one of the reasons, I think that's actually a root cause why organizations, especially large organizations, find it difficult to achieve long-term goals, because they really don't have that concept of cadence. Your computer has a clock. Okay, and the purpose of that clock is so that you can kind of read where things are, decide what you're going to do, then all of the processing happens, and then you wait for things to settle down. That's where the clock comes back down, and when the clock goes up again, okay, where are we? What's the next step? And it's kind of a digitalization of management. And most management is very analog, and so things are constantly readjusting, and you're never quite sure what the state is, and that makes it very difficult to move forward. And then that's what Walter's case, I thought, made very clear. The importance of having a cadence, especially at the leadership level of an organization. That's what makes it possible to get things done. That's what makes it possible to, react systematically to new information. So very powerful case that Walter studied, and I hope it becomes a role model for a lot of companies. Because I think there's a lot of power in that for our leadership.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Well said. And Walter, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you sharing some additional insights and really honored to have your story in our book. Thank you.
You're totally welcome.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you, Walter.
All right, our next speaker, Tariq Iku Amawi. Tariq, wonderful to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Remember, we were talking about first the personal agility system last year, and you started applying it. You got some insights of your own. And one of the things that we've noticed is that the personal agility system is very complementary with other programs. Earlier, we were talking with Thomas about the unbossing initiative and helping leaders to be able to empower their people more. One of the things that Tarek has been very good at is helping people to identify their path and purpose and get clarity on what they want in their lives. And we discovered that the personal agility system fits like a little puzzle piece with the path and purpose. Tarek, can you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and why this is so important for helping people to discover and apply in their lives today?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Tarek. And I think a lot of us historically choose goals, though the goals aren't necessarily in highest alignment with what truly fulfills us. So we might get a lot of outward success, but not that inner fulfillment that we seek. And I find that a lot of the goals and targets that people have are generally things that are foisted upon us by either societal expectations, patterning from childhood, things that we might have received in school or from parents. And so to quiet that white noise and be able to just tune into what's true for us and what is our authentic path, how can we derive a sense of purpose? And then from that new, informed place, then be able to choose, okay, let's create some new goals from this space now. Now that we know who we really are and what truly makes us happy, let's set our goals from this place.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Tarek. I appreciate that. And, you know, a lot of times, one of the things that we see is people, they say something matters. They say something's important, but their actual actions don't necessarily align. I'm curious, what have you seen from, you know, what you talk about in your Path and Purpose program about how to, you know, get to the underlying beliefs that shape our reality and the habits that are running on the underlying operating system? How does that work? And when we become aware of that, what's possible to make as a change in our identity and in the alignment within ourselves?
Sure. Well, to answer this question, I can also go back to your previous question because I realized I didn't really introduce myself or what I'm about. I think somewhere along the journey, I noticed that I had a knack, if you will, for being able to get people really profound transformations without it necessarily taking much time at all. So I've helped people quit 20 years of alcoholism. I've helped people stop binge eating a certain food that they've done since they were a teenager. And this can happen over like 1 or 2 sessions. And I was like, okay, there's something that's happening here. How is this possible? Because we typically think that change needs to come at the cost of a lot of time or with a lot of struggle and strain. And that's simply not the case. At least my experience leads me to believe otherwise. So what happens is a lot of what we consider to be our bad habits are wired to things that we call pleasures, and things that we would call good habits, or the habits that we would like to cultivate, are wired to pains. And so we have a mismatch in the wiring. We have a crossing of wires there. So people, for example, would think, oh, training, it's hard, it's difficult, it's tough. You know, I'm going to sweat, then I have to like change my clothes and shower. And they associate it with the pain. Meanwhile, something like, let's say, excessive drinking, be like, oh, but that's socializing, connecting with friends, seeing the people I like, laughing. So they associate that with pleasure. Whereas when we look at the true cost of a habit and rewire those associations, we find that it doesn't need willpower then to be able to overcome the change in behavior. Because the behavior is simply a ripple of the belief. So if you imagine a belief like a stone that falls into a pond, the behavior is what ripples out. So a lot of people try and affect the ripple without simply changing the stone that's creating the ripples in the first place. And so when we can get to the underlying beliefs, those beliefs then shape the behaviors, and those behaviors then shape the results. So we need to really start at the belief level and see why you believe what you believe. How did you come to believe that? And are those beliefs true? Do they hold up to scrutiny? Can we give them a litmus test to see how valid they are?
Wow. Thank you, Tarek. This is what I love about these concepts, is that it sounds so simple when you say it that way, and yet we don't just change habits that quickly. What do you think is the key here? Is it the awareness? Is it the openness to change? Is it timing? How can people start to have those shifts?
I think first and foremost, it comes with what I would call a belief audit. So you might be used to audits in other contexts, but when have you last audited your beliefs? Because if you were to look at the amalgam of your life experience as the outward expression of your internally held beliefs, you'll very quickly be able to see. You can even do this right now. You can ask yourself, what do I have to believe to be true in order to be having this experience when it comes to wealth, in order to be having this experience when it comes to body, to relationships, to happiness, to health? And you'll find that the beliefs often do match your experience. And so in the words of the famous psychotherapist, Marissa Peer from the UK, she says that, first we make our beliefs, then our beliefs make us. So first you make your beliefs, then your beliefs make you. And we have the opportunity to make our beliefs, but very few people take the time to actually go in at that level, see what their current beliefs are, and ask themselves, are these beliefs the ones that I want to carry moving forward? And if not, being given a tool set to be able to change that.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, I think that, when you start to go to that level, I mean, first of all, stopping and pausing and reflecting can help us to see, are we getting the results we want in our life? But then when we peel back these layers and go deeper into the beliefs and into the things that actually drive our behaviors, that helps us to be able to actually make those shifts at that core. It's the rock rather than the ripple, right? And so, Tarek, I'm curious if you could also share with us some of your personal experience. Back last year when we started looking at the personal agility system, I remember we were going through your priorities map and the breadcrumb trail, and you had some initial insights related to that when you started to visualize the next steps. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yes. So for me, one of the most incredible things about the agility system, and just from watching you in action, actually, was to see how quickly you iterate. Like, that was one of the things that I found most impressive and really took me aback was, wow, you course correct in real time. And it's something that I will forever carry with me. And it's one of the most profound learnings that I got to witness firsthand from you, is to see how you're constantly assessing. And I love this idea of, messy action over perfect preparation. So we can wait to get ready to finally be prepared, and meanwhile the opportunity's passed, or we can simply dive in and produce what we can from where we are, and then iterate upon that and make the next one better and make the next release better. And I find that approach to be just 1,000 times more efficient. And it's truly masterful to see you wield that in your life and in the lives of the clients that you work with.
Oh, thank you, Tarek. I appreciate that so much. And, it's always one of those things of looking at, living the things that we preach, right? And having that authenticity. And, one of my favorite comments that you had brought up, I think it was almost a year ago, as you were talking about how just visualizing the things that you had done when you actually stopped and paused and reflect and look back at the previous week, it's like, wait a minute, I've got, different things that I have this vague ambition to complete, like a training course or a program, but I find myself wandering through YouTube and getting lost online. And wow, in the time that I clicked on this link and then went down that rabbit trail, I could have actually completed this course and developed a new skill around a very specific thing. And, I'm curious about your thoughts about how that visualization, when we go to that depth of looking at the beliefs and the underlying operating system that's running as we look at our habits, how can that visualization really pair? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I would go beyond visualization to embodiment. So rather than simply try and change things at a behavioral level or even at a belief level, what we can do is adopt a new identity. So for example, like I've worked with clients in the past, let's say somebody wants to quit smoking. Rather than saying, today I'm going to try and smoke less, which is hard to quantify, it's hard to measure, and it doesn't necessarily fill you with conviction. When you adopt the identity of, I'm a non-smoker now. And then if somebody presents you with your old identity and says, oh, I know you always reach for a cigarette when the chips are down. Then you respond by saying, yes, that was my old story. However, Today, I'm a non-smoker. So you constantly place things that you no longer want to be a part of your makeup, part of your personality in the past tense. And you remind people, you correct people if they try and hold you in that. Because what often happens is the colleagues around us, our friends, our family, loved ones, they know us to be a certain way. Oh, I know you. You never get to things on time. Oh, I know you. You start things, but you never complete them. And that then becomes the mantra that repeats in our own minds. And it's up to us, right? I often say to people, a lot of this stuff is not your fault. However, changing it is your responsibility. And so it's up to each of us to then say, yes, that was true. That used to be who I was. However, today I am, insert the blank, fill in the blank. And it's important to change at that identity level. So when I work with people, even when I look at my own life, I'm like, okay, what is the avatar, the character that I'm stepping into? Is it an outdoors, nature enthusiast / athlete? Is it a sci-fi fantasy novelist? And I don't say today I'm going to try and write or today I'm going to try and train. I instead choose identities, and the behaviors then become natural echoes of that new identity that you've chosen. So when you choose a few very specific identities by applying more of a scalpel than a sledgehammer, right? So be very specific. Like, I'm not just a fitness person. I'm someone who likes to hike in nature and do, these kinds of trails, right? I'm not just a writer. I'm a sci-fi fantasy novelist, right? I'm not just an entrepreneur. I'm somebody who helps consult businesses from the move from Web 2 to Web 3. Like, be really specific, like surgical. And then you can find that the behaviors of that just naturally tend to emanate.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Peter, I wanted to invite you to see if you had any questions or thoughts for Tarek as well.
This has been a very, very deep, how should I say, a deep discussion. I'm still trying to wrap my arms around it. One of the things that I found, this notion of identity, okay, and kind of how you define your identity and who you are and who you're not, that's very powerful. I've noticed this in working with groups, this question, who are we, that actually can kind of bring a group together, and all of a sudden they're willing to, they start to identify themselves as the group, and as I say, it gives them a new identity, and that's as I say, very, very powerful motivating force. One of the conversations that I've had has been about, Simon Sinek can start with why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I read a rebuttal to it. Actually, I taught it to a group of scientists. The scientists kind of rolled their eyes and said, this man does not understand the biochemistry of the brain. Totally wrong, which might be true for them, but, we're not trying to simulate the brain in silicon, so I don't worry too much about that. But where the rebuttal really resonated with me was a salesman saying, well, my job is to sell, and I can talk about why all day long, but if the person doesn't want to buy, isn't interested, doesn't care, doesn't have the authority, whatever, I'm wasting my time. So he says, start with who. Who are you? Okay. Who am I? Okay. And for the salesman, that's obviously, are you a real buyer is what they're really trying to find out. But the who question, we actually use this in personal agility as the first, when we're building that relationship with the stakeholder, the absolute first question, who are you? What do you do? And people love to talk about themselves, and that just gets people going. So, for me, your talk has been really fascinating. I'm still kind of, I'm in this, what is it? Mumbling, trying to say, what am I going to say here that's intelligent? But I do think it's very powerful, in this question of, kind of who are you, and how you can kind of shape who you are by deciding who you want to be. And rejecting things that aren't speaking to who you want to be. Wow, yeah, very interesting stuff. I'm kind of chewing on how to deal with that. So, thank you for coming. I guess this the long what is it? Long explanation. TLDR, too long, didn't read, can't quite finish the sentence. Thank you very much for coming. It was very interesting.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate you joining us, Tarek. Your concepts have really been foundational and transformational for me. And I know we don't have enough time to go into nearly as much as we'd like to here. So I want to put a link into the chat for anyone that would like to learn more from Tarek and these concepts he's talking about. We're currently hosting a virtual coaching group that touches on the path and purpose content, as well as we've been experimenting, and Peter and I have been talking about this micro learning approach and a micro credential around personal agility. So we're running an experiment around that. And so the link's in the chat for anyone that wants to join our live coaching calls and get a deeper look at personal agility. So thank you, Tarek. I appreciate you joining us. Any final words as we wrap up here?
Sure. Well, actually, I saw a really great question from Khalid there that I would love to quickly address before hopping off. And also, if you do feel called to dive into this kind of starting with the beliefs, shifting your identity, and it kind of ties into Khalid's question as well. Then it's not simply the coaching calls. There's also all these little bite-sized learnings, which are 2 minutes, 4 minutes in length. So it's very, very easy to just drop into, and you can watch them over and over again. And it kind of works on you like a massage. Like a massage is not a massage because of one single stroke, but it's the combination of strokes over time that just release and relax the muscles. It's the same kind of thing. You'll just find it working on you. And then after a month, you'll be like, oh, wow, I'm living a different life. How did that happen? So if you feel inspired to do that, then feel free to join us there. So Khalid, your question really touched me. Is it fake it till you make it? How do you step into this new identity while at the same time being authentic? I think that's such a brilliant question. So first of all, realize that you is not a finite object. You are not like an apple or a banana, right? You are essentially a composite of your patterns, your beliefs, your habits, your actions, your thoughts, and the company you keep, the people you have around you, and the environment that you're in. All of these factors play a part in who you are. And so when we begin to change these and consistently apply new actions, like let's say, for example, you've never been a morning person, and all of a sudden you find that for the last 30 days, you've been able to wake up every morning at a certain time when you never would have been able to before. Now you have the proof that you are becoming this new version of yourself. And so it's not about fake it till you make it. It's more about know it and show it. So know that you have the capacity to be able to step into who you've never been before, because just logically, you can't have a life you've never had by being who you've always been. You have to become someone you've never been to live a life you've never had. And so realize that you have the capacity to be all kinds of things. When people say oh, life is like sliding doors and it could have gone this way, but it went this way. It could have zigged when it zagged. All of those are just potentiality. That's just stuff that's out there in the ether. And it's up to us to choose through our actions, thoughts, habits, patterns, the people we keep around us, the environment that we put ourselves in, what kind of people we become. And a lot of people think it's fixed. I have plenty of proof to say otherwise.
Amazing. Thank you, Tarek. Appreciate you joining us. And if you want to learn more from Tarek, the link is in the chat to join us for that journey. Thank you, Tarek. Appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have so many great examples and the stories of the people that are getting results with personal agility. We have all these other concepts and these other approaches that personal agility really fits with and empowers and amplifies. And so Peter and I discovered that personal agility really works as a complementary program to other existing programs. And so it's wonderful to see how this applies with Thomas, who was talking about the embossing approach, with Tarek and the path and purpose. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, please pick up your copy of the Personal Agility book, which is live on Amazon today, published through the Business Agility Institute. And that brings us to our next speakers, a couple of my favorite people to chat with at the same time, Carl and Sabrina. How are you both? Great to have you with us. And thank you, Peter, for inviting Carl and Sabrina to join us. I'm so glad you both are available. How are you?
We're good. We're in the UK. We're good. It was it was an honor, actually, because we you guys have actually helped us a lot more than you actually think, really, in one sense, especially from our chats. I mean, the last chat we did with you guys was it was so long ago, and it's too long because Peter, we chatted to you. Your video went live on the 18th of May in 2021, and Maria, we did one with you on the 4th of November. So we need to get you back onto Agile World very soon, if possible. Especially bring your book, because it's an amazing. We want to bring you on. We want you to tell our followers, more about your book and the benefits, because we, both myself and Carl, have benefited from it. So.
Sabrina, thank you. Would love to come back, and also would love to hear more. Tell us about these benefits. Tell us more about what are these things that we don't know about.
So obviously me and Carl, we decided to take on a very, very big journey, actually building Agile World News and Agile World, the charity, and to be able to make space in our lives and our very, very busy lives. We're both private consultants in the background, which those who are very similar to us can understand, that takes a lot of time, including family life. We needed to make some space to move towards our vision and our goal, which was Agile World and still is Agile World. And we still use, and we had to, when speaking to Peter and yourself, we started to realize different methods using personal agility to be able to make that space, because everyone's busy at the end of the day. We've all got family, we've all got hobbies, we've got friends, we've got, things that we want to do in our career side. And as you can understand with Agile World, it's a big thing. There's a lot of people involved, there's a lot of organizing. And we ended up, after speaking to both of you, we use personal agility for it. I've been using it for a number of years in my version and take, and from things I've read from the Personal Agility Institute, with renovating my house with my husband and trying to
renovating your husband. Sorry,
not renovating my husband. I'm lucky, I'm blessed. My husband is an agilist. My friends aren't, though. They don't understand it. So I've been using the standard Kanban board. I mean, we've got Kanban boards on the fridge. I've got them on the door in the front of my office. We've got them on the walls of the rooms that we're renovating in. But then it was also using the personal agility to try and organize how we structured our life to still be able to do all the good things that we have in our personal side, to then also make the space to be able to do what we were doing in Agile World. And it really did help, because otherwise I don't think we would have Agile World, because at the very beginning, there was a lot of work involved, and there still is a lot of work now. So being able to understand what is the priority, not just for the day, not just for the week, but what is your priority for the month? What are our goals? What do we want to achieve? I mean, me and Carl still do this on a weekly basis, where we get together and work out what we want to achieve on the month and what do we want to achieve. But we also work around our personal lives. So I'm lucky that Carl's my best friend as well. So Carl will say to me, well, I got this going on in my life, and I'll go, I got this going on in my life. And we work around it in that sense. And that is where it's really helped us. It's helped us actually to make space, a bit more space. And it's not a situation of we're just squeezing it. It's not a situation where somehow a 24-hour day has turned into a 29-hour day. We've actually been able to organize in a way where we can actually still do everything we need to do, still get the joy, and also still fit in our world of Agile World. And Carl's actually got a very interesting and very different scenario how he's done it.
So I kind of took the conversation and kind of looked at my life and the state it was in. And everyone, I think, when you realistically look at yourself, you try and hide the bits you're not happiest about. But actually, if you go through some of the processes that Peter was talking about when we interviewed him, and actually really sort of map things out a bit and think about really what you're trying to achieve and choose the priorities and try and move away the things that aren't priorities. I think that was quite an astounding idea to me, because I've done it in work. I'd never done it to myself. And I think that was quite an eye-opener. And one of the things that I did was I tried to sit down and go, what do I really want to achieve? Why am I here? And I think, Agile World and my work, all those things, but why am I here? What am I here for? What am I going to achieve? And I looked around for who and what are my priorities. My actual main priority is my wife. That's my main priority in the whole of my life, is my wife. She has made me feel secure. She has given me a safe place, and I want to do the same for her. So that's actually, I made a note up on the wall, was secure my wife's financial future. And it took me a year and a half. And in October 2022, I cleared all my financial liabilities, including my house. We now own our house. Everything is gone. I took, it didn't happen like that. What actually happened was every day that I got next to my computer and saw that note, it adapted my thinking around what I was trying to achieve. And I think that's the fundamental part of personal agility, is that when you have clarity over what you're trying to achieve, then and you make sure it's in front of you at all times, then you adapt your world around it instead of it adapting your objectives. So thank you guys. It was really important.
I would say a big thank you to Maria as well, because that story, the talk that we did and that story you did, like, you inspired me. I want to be like you. The things that you've done, the way that you showed that you can move mountains no matter what. So literally every time I feel low or I feel down or I think, oh, what am I doing here? Can I do this? I'm exhausted. I watch your video that we did, because that then gives me the get up and go to go, hang on a minute, I can do this. This is possible. I just need to reorganize myself and work through it and then set my goals. So sorry, I spoke over you then.
Sabrina, wow, that means so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, sometimes we don't really see the result or hear the result after years and years and years of talking about the same concept over and over and trying to inspire people. And that means so incredibly much. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing that.
Yeah, I want to underline that, really thank you, because you guys made it. The reason you guys are here is because you made a post on LinkedIn, quite independent of what we were doing, just saying, thank you for, personal agility and the inspiration it gave you and all that. And, for me, it just kind of came out of the blue. But that's also like the third or fourth time that's happened in the last 2 weeks. After a long period of time of not hearing anything, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. Okay. And I'm like, wow. And this kind of message, this has actually inspired me to kind of rethink, what does agility mean? Okay. Because for some people, agility is, Scrum as a method. For some people, it's the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto. Okay. Some people, and for a long time, I counted myself in this group, it's that first sentence of the Agile Manifesto, uncovering better ways, by doing it and helping each other to do it. Okay. Which I translated into learning, collaboration, and purpose. But what I realized, getting these thank you messages, for me, agility represents hope. Okay. Alistair Coburn, who we heard from earlier, he had this vision of, the Agilists, we're a bunch of archaeologists digging in the dirt and we're all in the mud, and it's not a lot of fun. And we don't really know if we're going to find a better artifact, but we keep digging anyway. Okay. And so why do you keep digging when you don't know that something's there? Well, it's because you hope. Okay. And, for me, the transformations that we hear about over and over, and I'd love to do a case study on you guys, to kind of talk about this. That's the proof that there's a reason for hope. It's justified to be hopeful. Okay.
And it's really important to share that it doesn't happen to unique people. It happens to anyone that's willing to take the choice and act upon it. And that's, we'd be more than happy to be involved in the case study, because it's just to release the knowledge that we did something and it affected our lives and our ability to be happy, I would say.
Hey, that would be lovely. Let's take an appointment. We'll
I think it kind of shows the beauty of agility that some people don't maybe realize is, yes, okay, you got Scrum, Kanban, you've got the frameworks, but the beauty of agility is, I can almost use the term of, it's in the eye of the beholder. It is moldable and so flexible that you can literally use it on anything. And so many people have heard me say this. And personal agility is one huge proof it can be used on anything, because actually it's depending on that person's view, goals, wants and needs, is how it could be molded and used. It's that flexible. They just need to be able to open. And I think that's what you guys do, is you have the ability to be able to ask those questions so that person, that individual, those groups can envision it and actually see how can they build that path. And then you support them with the tools and the ways of working for them to be able to achieve it. So I sometimes you don't actually realize actually how effective everything that you're doing here at Personal Agility Institute, because you are literally helping people achieve their goals.
Amazing. Amazing. Sabrina, thank you. And
thank you.
You know, this is something that we've thought and suspected for years. And, you know, hearing from you and hearing from all of our practitioners and hearing from people that, no, wait, no, yeah, you know, flip the page. Yeah, yep, tried that. That did work. And, you know, that's what I think helps make this a movement. It's the results, it's the stories, it's the genuine, authentic expression of getting back to something that's so human that we don't often connect on. I feel like so much of today's world is running around so busy. Is anyone else in Zoom meetings all day long? I mean, right? Like it's just meeting to meeting to meeting. And it's like, can I get human interaction? Maybe squeeze in a little bit on a Tuesday, maybe a Thursday. And, you know, where's the meaning gone in life when you're just jumping into virtual meeting rooms all day? And, you know, there's a lot of lack of fulfillment in that. And, you know, coming up with you know, even the concept of the path and purpose and being able to refocus on what really matters. It's taking that time to pause and reflect, but also it's something that's oh so meaningful. And we're seeing this from a personal perspective. We're seeing this from a work perspective. And Thomas was talking about, you know, with unbossing, he was talking about the people that come in all excited at work, and then by the end of not the day, but maybe, you know, give them a few months or maybe even 6 months.
Give them a month or two. Yeah, that's not
they're so deflated. Like you're looking at like, what does really matter? People dread Mondays. What matters, right? And so how can we infuse that purpose back into the things we do in our work, back into the ways that we live in our life? And it's really about that. And that's so much more deep than even just achieving a goal. It's something more meaningful and fulfilling.
Well, I think it's even more important now. I think what's unfortunately has happened with the pandemic, where a lot of us have had the ability and now got the ability to have that flexibility to work from home, which at the very beginning was great. But actually now we're starting to see another sign where we need more and more personal agility, because you're right. I've spent a whole day in meetings. I've spent my whole week in meetings, and I've got to work out a way of being able to actually physically do my work, as well as being able to see my husband, who's only downstairs. We're all starting to live in this world at the moment where it's great to be at home where we're not traveling as much, but now actually we're working longer, we're in meetings longer all day, and we're now having to fit our work out of hours sometimes, which means that the people that are in your home, you know, I mean, I saw him for a coffee at 7 o'clock this morning. He's literally downstairs. And the last time I saw my husband was at 7 o'clock this morning. And it is an effect that has happened, an after effect from the pandemic, where we've gained this beautiful flexibility of being at home, but now actually we're starting to move into our personal space. And that's where we do need to start reflecting and either start saying no and actually start prioritizing ourselves a little bit more. And I think a lot of people may feel guilty about prioritizing themselves because they feel they've now got this luxury of being at home, not having to travel to the office as much, but actually it's now affecting our personal space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Peter, thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, you know, we talk about being in meetings. You know, meetings is a topic that I've spent some time thinking about lately. We talked about it a bit earlier. You know, and I actually think that, you know, too much time in meetings, when do we do actual work? Okay, you know, these meetings, you know, they're good meetings, you know, some meetings are good, some meetings are bad, and some of them are downright ugly. And you know, but the problem is that they all take time, and there are only so many hours in the day. And if we say we're here to do something, and that applies in life as in work, you know, if we spend all of our time in meetings, then we don't actually get anything done. except maybe report about the things that we want to do until the next meeting. But, well, one of the things I got to go to a couple of face-to-face conferences this year, and what I'd forgotten is kind of what we've lost by going into the virtual world. On the one hand, the transaction costs of getting together, like doing this event, we've got people from around the world. It would have been several orders of magnitude more money if we hadn't been able to do it virtually. But on the other hand, where is there spontaneous interaction in an electronic event? Okay, when you're face to face, you have conversations, you sit next to someone, depending on how the conference is organized, you might actually start talking to them or meet them at the coffee machine, and interesting spontaneous things can happen. But it's really hard to be spontaneous in an electronic virtual world. So I guess that's the this whole what's our space, what's our person. Oh yeah, there's every once in a while I teach a class. For a long time I was only doing virtual classes, and the weirdest thing was I once had a couple taking the class together, and he was upstairs, or he was in the kitchen and she was in the living room or something like that. And every once in a while he'd leave his screen, walk over to her, to where she was sitting, and he'd be at a different window. And that's just such kind of a weird thing, because it doesn't actually, there's no way that I could appear in Maria's window right now unless we happen to be in the same room. And so it's just so weird to see that.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, no, I think this kind of redefining our space, and we also see that people are, this is a hot topic in business. Well, are we, is virtual a fact of life? Is it something that we want to get away from? Is it something we want to stay with? And how do we make it? I've been sitting in my chair for 4 hours, and I'm starting to feel the impact of that too. It's got impact on health and fitness and everything.
I feel we have to. It's a new way of living. It's a new way of working. And I feel that we have to evolve to it. I mean, for example, I agree with you. I've been sat in my chair. Well, normally I would be sat in my chair for like 8 hours, but I've bought a standing desk and an under desk treadmill. So now I do walk on, Carl finds it really weird. You will see me walking on meetings. And I will walk on my stand-ups, and I will walk on my meetings. And I've been speaking to chiefs and businesses while walking. They're like, "Are you moving, Sabrina?" "Yeah, I'm walking while talking to you." And I feel energized. And actually, I get my best ideas when I'm walking and talking, even though it looks a little bit weird and everything like that. I think we have to evolve in it, because, say, personally for me, I wouldn't want that factor of being at home taken away from me, because my job involves me. At the moment, I live away 3 nights a week. So I'm away from my family. I'm at the opposite end of the country. I'm 5 hours away from my family. So I'm living in a hotel for 3 nights a week. And if I didn't have that opportunity to be at home, then I wouldn't see my family as much, and I would be out 5 days a week, and it's exhausting. So I would personally never want to have that option taken away, but I do feel we need to evolve as people, and the businesses need to understand that, yes, okay, you can get a couple of extra hours out of us because we're not traveling. We agree to that, and we're actually happy about that. But they've also got to understand that actually this is our personal time. We need to get back to the olden days where our email was not on our phone, so you couldn't contact us constantly. We have a shut-off time where we actually, it's back to the 9 to 5. I mean, out of interest, if you don't mind me asking, raise your hands, anyone here who could actually physically say they do a 9 to 5? Because we don't. On our day jobs, we don't anymore, because they can access through phone, emails. We sneakily look at it, an email pops in, someone emails you at 9 o'clock. Carl, you're different, okay? You're my nighttime job, so you can get away with it. But like, someone will email you at 9 o'clock because they've got an idea in their head, and we will open it and respond. So then we create that chain reaction at others that see it, and they feel, oh, they're working that time of night. I'm not doing enough. I need to respond, or I need to get into the conversation. It creates that chain reaction where we all just need to agree. These are my hours. This is what I do. And what I do out of those hours, it's my personal time to achieve my goals and my experiences. Sorry, I talk a lot.
It used to be, kind of what's the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur? And they would say the entrepreneur is someone who would rather work, 80 hours a week for themselves than 40 hours a week for someone else. Except with the pandemic and the digitalization, we don't have that distinction anymore.
Yeah, I think.
And the reason.
Go ahead, Carl.
I was just going to say the reason that Sabrina was saying is that because I don't really sleep.
I
I understand the concept of it, but I don't do very much. I normally get about 3 hours sleep, and the reason for that is that I get too many ideas. And I used to go to bed with one of these notepads by the side of my bed, and get up in the morning, and it was full of notes. Now what I do is I get out of bed and I build the stuff during the night while my wife doesn't know I'm awake. So I understand the idea of work-life balance, but there's also this bit where I'm slightly a mad inventor and I'm happy to spend the time inventing stuff.
Yeah, we had to agree on ways of working. At one point, the routine of my morning was to wake up and find out what Carl had done. And
overnight.
So, but that's down to our personal agreement that we have. Is Carl understands, I need sleep. I need 8 hours if I can get it, and I do the gym in the morning. Where I know Carl he's a night person. He's great in the evening. So, within our journey, we had to arrange our own ways of working, get to know each other in how we both like to work. And we also agreed that Agile World isn't work, it's our passion and dream. So it's not our work, it's our goal and where we want to achieve, and we're collaborating and having fun together while doing it.
Amazing. And, I think what we're highlighting here is that the landscape of the world of work has changed. And the way that we interact with work has changed. The way we interact with technology, what technology has empowered has changed. And so why not shift our approach in how we manage that, right? Because I think the current approach is kind of like this, you got all these things you try to deflect, but my deflection doesn't work that well. And so, I get those messages on the fly. I'm working with teams offshore, overseas. We have sometimes meetings at 10:30 p.m. at night. And I had to stand firm to say, no, I cannot commit to a 2 a.m. meeting every week, because that's going to really throw off my health. And that's a boundary that I have to have. And, we have this global workforce, and we have time zones, and we have these expectations, and we have these never slowing down things. And so, it makes sense that a new way of managing that should emerge. A new way of looking at how to even deal with that could be necessary.
If you think about it, it's still a bit taboo, isn't it, to be having an alcoholic drink at 10 a.m. So why is it not taboo to be working at 10 p.m.? Should we all start, maybe we should all start drinking?
I like your thinking on that. I really do.
So my goal is to make work look more like vacation, and vacation to look less like work.
I'm in the wrong country for that. I'm sorry. Wherever you're going, take me.
And I think this really, it just gives us an opportunity to pause and reflect, right? I feel like, a lot of people went to this virtual way of working. And as you mentioned, Sabrina, there's a lot of pros, and there's, yes, some cons, but, there's still some pros. And so it's like, okay, how do we now adapt with that? How do we help that be more sustainable in how we work? And I see a comment in the chat here from Gordon. The French have the right idea, make it illegal. So French law bans workplace communication after work hours. Amazing. That's why
on weekends, apparently, you're not allowed to do answer emails. I mean, yeah. I mean, I saw it on Emily in Paris. That's the only reason I know it.
I mean, that's radical, but it looks like that's actually a country that is looking at the health and well-being of their people, and they're seeing it being taken too far. And so, there's opportunities here where, and I think, this has been brought up a couple times throughout the day, where, people may not realize that we actually have a choice. You might think that you don't. You might feel this pull of obligation in all these different directions, though we actually are. The metaphor that Peter and I like to use is a navigation metaphor. We are the captain of our ship. We're sailing through the ocean, and we get to steer. And even though sometimes we might feel that, we're just there being, drifting along with the way the winds blow, we actually can step back up and steer at any time.
It's our boat.
Right, that part.
Not just the captain of the boat, we're the owner of the boat.
That too, yes. And so I think this is really, just a nice reminder. It's a nice reflection back to think about, what is the reality that we want to create? And even back to what Tarek said earlier, where he was talking about, what is the identity that you hold? And that hits me deeply when I think about that. It's like, ooh, okay, what is the identity that I hold? Is it someone who works all the time, nights and weekends? Is that who I am? Does work define me? But then it also gets into this new realm where that might be uncomfortable to look at, well, what do you do when you're not working? Why are you working so much? There is a boundary you could set. Other people set these boundaries. Is there something deeper inside that you're not facing because you're never slowing down long enough to stop, look in the mirror and say, am I happy in my life? Am I achieving the things I want? Do I feel good about every day? Do I feel happy and fulfilled? And when Peter and I first started talking about this concept of personal agility, I remember it was at the Experience Agile event, formerly known as Scrum Day Portugal, in Lisbon, Portugal. And he said, hey, Maria, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. I've been applying Agile in my life, this personal agility concept. And I was like, yeah, Peter, I was like, yeah, great. That's great. Of course, Agile works in your life, right? Like, because I'd been applying Agile in my life too. And I saw these amazing results. But what I didn't realize, and I think one of my biggest aha moments was, it's not about achieving more. It's not about I got more done. Look at my efficiency, right? People go to Scrum for twice the work in half the time. It's not about just getting more done. It's actually about the happiness and fulfillment that comes along with that. And that's something that I learned from Alistair Coburn and Lisa Adkins, because I was very achievement-based. I might still be very achievement-based. And that's how I'm motivated as a motivational value system. However, what I found is that just rinsing and repeating and achieving more things, there was an emptiness that came with that. No matter how grand, no matter how great, launching an international business, traveling the world, speaking on stages of thousands of people, great, hoopla, rounds of applause. But at the end of the day, another event's done. Here I am. I'm now tired and maybe a little lonely and wondering what really matters at the end of the day, because that feeling of emptiness just through achievement alone is not fulfilling. And what I realized through personal agility is that it's actually not just about achieving more. It's about achieving things that are more meaningful. It's about finding more fulfillment in life. And it's that meaning and fulfillment that really sets this approach apart from other methodologies and frameworks.
It's funny, I was thinking back to that conversation too. The first time I asked you the what really matters question, okay, and you kind of thought it through, and the first answers that came were kind of the obvious answers, the ones that you'd been living by. But then came the deeper reflections about, health and loneliness and kind of the, oh, wait a minute, all these things that aren't on my radar screen. And, it's when you said, oh, wait a minute, these things need to be on my radar screen. Okay. And then all of a sudden it was very easy to make changes in your life because, I see this, now I know what I want to do. And I'm not sure if that was the change. If that was the subject here, but change is easy if you want to do it. Okay, as soon as you decide you want to change, you can do it. And when you say, oh, I've been drifting this way, but actually I want to go that way. Well, all of a sudden, spend more time doing stuff that takes you this way, and off you go.
Maria, exactly what you've just said. If we could take a video snippet of that and then just regularly just feed that out, that would change so many people's lives. Actually, both what Peter and Maria said, because occasionally you have to be reminded of that. You could be following personal agility, and it's so actually you could be following your day-to-day life and things could be going great, but you can very easily slip out of it and slip into your old ways. It's so easy to do. I've done it multiple times, and you almost need that reminder of exactly what Carl did. He put that post-it note in front of him. Wherever he was, the first thing he would see is that post-it note of that was his goal. And you need that to remind you to refocus yourself back when you do, because we're human at the end of the day. And if you're like me, anything sparkly and I'm away, so it's always terrible. But we've always got to keep reminding ourselves, what is our goal? What we want to achieve? Do we feel satisfied at the end of it? Do we feel that we've done valuable, and the value that's valuable to us and to our customers and whatever we're doing. Yeah, if we could just grab a snippet of that video and just keep sending it out to remind people, you know, what are you doing?
Oh, I appreciate that, Sabina. And Sabrina, I think we can absolutely do that. And, you know, these are the reminders. These are the things that people don't often talk about. These are the things that are those, the conversations that don't necessarily occur. And I think these are the conversations that should start to come up. These are the things that we should be thinking about really what is meaningful at the end of the day. And I see some comments in the chat here from Khalid. Ever since I started my first job, they forbade me from working all the time. Not the case in my current job. Nice point, Maria. Carl loved this comment. So I don't differentiate work from life because I love my work. I only get paid for 50% of my work. The rest I do, and thanks for the 50% that pays me. And I think that right there, Carl, that right there is that concept of path and purpose. When you have that clarity on what your purpose is and what it is that you want to do, what lights you up, what you find fulfilling, when you're in alignment with that, then it doesn't feel like work. You're ecstatic, exuberant, you're happy to get up on Monday and do what you do. You're waking up in the middle of the night and you're giving Sabrina things to look at when she wakes up in the morning so that you have working around the clock. And that is passion. And that is passion that a lot of people don't have because they're not in alignment. And that's really at the core of personal agility. And that's one of the words that made it to the cover: unlocking purpose, alignment, and transformation. And Peter and I went back and forth on the title and the subtitle. And every time I thought we got it locked down, it's like, well, what if I thought we just agreed. But I really like where this landed. And it landed at looking at, you know, what is your purpose? And that's what you were just talking about there, Carl. And then are you in alignment? Because when you're in alignment with your purpose, then things are meaningful, things feel fulfilling, they don't feel like work, you don't dread it. And then transformation is as we're getting to that point on that journey. So, you know, looking back, Peter, I think we nailed it on the subtitle. And so I think it all really does fit together there so very well.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about the title for the next book, which I think is going to be Unstoppable, because that's what people and companies are when they do this.
It is. And really using the personal agility around like relationships. Like a lot of people ask me and Carl, because we are very different people. And a lot of people are quite shocked of how close me and Carl are. And they kind of go, well, how do you guys kind of work together? You're completely different people. And I think you two have got the same situation as us, is where we've kind of understood each other as people, built a friendship, a very close friendship, and we've aligned ourselves with our goals. And we have to keep reminding ourselves, we keep ourselves in check, but we do understand how we work, and we're aligned, and it does really help. So maybe you can add something around that in your book as well, because that relationship, I think, is even more important sometimes when you've got a goal, it's not always just you solo. Sometimes there's other parties, people from different walks of life that are involved in it, like what you two have been able to achieve.
You know, one thing that Maria and I had a lot of fun with was the section we talked about using the coaching stance in real life. You know, and we had this potentially fictional story of a couple that was planning their first Christmas together, you know, and kind of working a way through, you know, different scenarios as to how they you know, how this conversation could play out. Okay. And, you know, and this I don't know, Maria, I think, do you want to share the story or kind of how this came to be? I kind of had the feeling this was autobiographical, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that.
No, it was actually a friend of mine, and we were talking, and, you know, for any new relationship, if you have a significant other and it's like, well, whose house do we go to for the holidays? And that's a big thing, right? Because the guy wants to go to his family, the girl wants to go to her family. And I was witnessing this conversation happening as just an innocent bystander. And it seemed to get like escalating into like a bigger challenge than it should have been. Because obviously both of the individuals wanted to see their families, and they wanted to have the person that they love with them there. And so when you look at that, you know, how do you handle that? How do you navigate that? And that's actually one of the types of situations and scenarios that we broke down in the book. And we started to look at, you know, let's actually pause. It's like the TV timeout, right? It's like, okay, pause. Like, how could we have done this differently? How is it that we could address this. And it's really looking at, well, what is it that we really want? It's pausing and taking a step back and saying, well, what's really important here? Is it the conflict? You know, we're finding ourselves in conflict. So if we can just pause and say, what really matters? Well, wanting to be with each other, wanting to be around the people that you love and care about. And when you can look at that, it's like, okay, also for one of the people having work obligations, well, I need to provide for our family. I want to feel appreciated. I don't want to be penalized for having to work near the holiday time. And so when you look at that, it's taking that step back from it's me versus you, and it's more of an us versus the world. And so in a couple type of scenario, it's looking at how can we be in alignment? How can we be in alignment with what really matters and keep that focus when things come up that could potentially cause that type of conflict? So, Sabrina, Carl, just want to say thank you so much for joining us. I see we've got some comments just filling up our chat here. I want to touch on a couple more. I saw one. It was Americans live to work, Europeans work to live. Personal agility only helps bring calm structure to life. Love that. When we look at, what's really important, we're talking about the meaning and the fulfillment. Khaled had a comment here that was beautiful. Need to make life more meaningful. Thanks, Maria. Thank you, Khaled. And that's really, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. Like, are the things you're doing every day the things that really matter? And that's what this is all about. And Walter, thank you so much for joining us. I have to leave. Want to thank Maria and Peter and all the contributors for sharing experiences and thoughts. Thank you all. Thank you, Walter. Appreciate you with us. And thank you for staying throughout the event today. So Sabrina, Carl, thank you for telling us about the impact that the personal agility system has had on your lives, even further than Peter and I were aware. That it really truly means so much to us. And, as much as we shout this from the mountaintops and we're like, this approach works, we're like, where are the droves? Where are the droves of people by the thousands using this? And, it's incremental. It's sharing these ideas. It's sharing these applications. It's helping people have that mindset shift into what's possible. Just want to open it up to any final thoughts that each of you have as we wrap up today with you. And thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Just really want to say thank you. I think this is the thing, often in life, you talk to people and they go away, you never hear from them again. I've had people come back 7, 8 years after I've talked to them about some aspects of doing their work and saying that they used what I'd said to them. They never told me at the time. But they used what I'd said to them and it helped them. And I think, as humans, we have a choice. We can either be selfish or not selfish. What you're doing is not selfish. And in that realm, thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And Sabrina, final thoughts.
Do you know, it's the same really as Carl. We're very grateful not only to know you two as lovely people, but also for your support and everything that you're actually doing. It definitely is changing a lot more people than I think you actually realize. And it's an absolute honor that you invited us to come on and tell our stories. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. And we'll see you on the show soon. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Let's book it. We'll schedule it. Awesome. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Carl. Absolute pleasure having you with us. And thank you, Peter, for inviting both of them. I think, it's amazing to hear all the different applications of personal agility and seeing what's possible. And, back to Peter's statement earlier, what is agility? What does it mean? What is it? And I love that agility is hope. And so with that, I want to invite our next speaker, Snehal Talati. Snehal, great to have you with us. Absolutely excited to hear what you have to say. We've been talking about personal agility this year and would love to hear your thoughts, your insights, and tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Maria. And hello, Peter. I'm glad to be here. First off, and I have to say, personal agility this year, when I kicked off 2023, I needed something, and I've been working with Maria and collaborating with Maria for a lot of different initiatives. But the main thing that really hit me was prioritization, right? Holding some system to hold me accountable. There's like so many thoughts in our mind, on a day-to-day that's just blasting off. I want to do this, I want to do that, but when we're trying to kind of see results, it's important for us to really hold something and have something where we can actually prioritize all of those thoughts and those actions. And when I came across personal agility, when Maria first told me about it, I went ahead and ordered my hard copy because I'm a hard copy book fan. I think Maria said I was one of the first to get the hard copy, so I feel proud of that accomplishment. But no, going through the book, I think, and going through the process of, working through that alignment of purpose, right? I think when we have all these thoughts, like how do we align our purpose to achieve the why that we're feeling? And so starting this system, I can tell you, it's already, started to make wonders happen. It's like a little bit of magic. Once you start doing it, you realize that what is it, like 21 days for you to make it a habit. And so like, I'm not there yet, but I can start seeing, like, I'm trying to put my accomplishments in for the week, like what was done, and what I achieved and what I accomplished, and celebrating those. I think some of the key things that I've learned while reading the book is, you want to make sure that you have this alignment, right? You have that purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. And so it has given me the ability to think about that, take a step back and think. Oftentimes we're just so carried on our day-to-day that we forget why we're doing what we're doing.
Oh, thank you, Snehal. I appreciate that. And, as Agilists, we apply this stuff at work all the time. And, we don't necessarily always think about ourselves, applying it in ourselves. And, even to go a step further, something that's come up throughout the sessions today is people have been talking about the idea of putting everyone else first, like being there for others, being there for other projects, for work, for family, for friends, for kids, for all these things. But then what about yourself? What about prioritizing yourself? So I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think is the most important about making sure that we don't neglect ourselves over, putting other people in front of that? And how does that actually make us better suited to be supportive for the people and the things around us?
Absolutely. So I say this, and it's a common thing that people say: if you want to bring change, you have to start with yourself. And I think that following the personal agility system and knowing who you are is like almost like that vibration that you send to others who are you're looking to collaborate with, right? So I think it starts with you, right? Change starts with you. And figuring out yourself, that purpose, your inner why, and then being able to use that energy that you create, right? And having something to do that is important, right? To like, and I'm not trying to say that that I've tried so many different things, right? And I think for me it was the simplicity of using this, right? It wasn't as complex. It's not as complicated as we think. Sometimes we make things so complicated because there's so many tools out there to help you try to figure out and unlock your purpose. But for me, this was very simple to use. And I think once you bring that change within yourself, then you can really spread this change across all the folks that you're collaborating with, and then teaching people and putting others first, right? And then telling them about trying to help them find their purpose, right? And so that's what I'm really excited about, because I think by following the personal agility system, I think I can use it to really help others find their why, and that purpose that they're there for. So to me, I can't wait, right? I can't wait to go through and look at my breadcrumbs and analyze them to see and how I can help others.
Thank you, Snehal. And, the other day we were talking about the industry. We were talking about how things are changing, and we're talking about emerging technologies, and we're talking about how companies are at a point where they probably need to start looking at embracing emerging technologies, and people need to start embracing emerging technologies. So, when we look at the personal agility system, yes, as an individual, we could add things for our own learning and for being able to continue to develop our skills and things like that. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on, let's say there was a company that was looking at getting into things like Web3, leveraging AI, there's all this talk of these different types of technologies that maybe companies haven't used in the past. Could you see the personal agility system helping with that, being able to focus on what really matters around staying relevant in the industry and some of the newer things that they could do to be able to add some of these new technologies into how they work?
Absolutely. So I can say that, because of, just having that teaching of the personal agility, especially the, the alignment purpose map, right, where we're trying to kind of figure out what goals to achieve. I've been using it to kind of work on this accelerated formulas, which I'm really, really excited about, kind of putting that forward and making that a priority. Because like you said, there's a lot of changes coming every day, right, in the tech space and the Web3 space. But I think the personal agility system helps you kind of understand what to prioritize, right, and when to prioritize it. Because I think that question we miss as Agilists. Oftentimes we prioritize things without understanding where the market's going or what trends are coming. And then we've already missed the train at that point. So it's like looking at these trends, looking at what's out there. And I think as AI evolves, as we get into the NFT world, or as Web3 emerges, like that's why it's called emerging technologies, as these technologies emerge, we should be paying attention to those. And I think the personal agility system helps you, right? It helps you prioritize and shift that focus there. So for me, I'm really excited to really put that on my priorities map, right? To say, I really need to work on this accelerator formulas, and really collaborating with you, Maria, I think will be amazing in that aspect in terms of, launching the accelerated formulas. And I can't wait to speak more on it and really prioritize the effort to share with everyone else.
That's great, Snehal. And, this reminds me of some conversations that Peter and I have been having lately. And I want to pull you in on this conversation, Peter, because, as we're talking about leaders, right? So I've been looking at how can we help the individuals, right? How can we help the teams? How can we help an organization with the adoption throughout the organization? Peter's been really looking at from the executive perspective and from the senior leaders, what can we do? And what you're saying here, Snehal, is I hear you talking about where should the business be going in the industry? What with technology, with adapting. And so, Peter, if we were to kind of draw the lines to connect these dots here, what do you see about how this might tie back into what leaders need to be aware of when they're actually looking at those initiatives for the organization?
One of the hardest questions to answer is, what should we be working on? Because the short answer is, today you don't know. You only know if you did the right thing afterwards. Okay, so you're gonna get as much information as you can, to kind of minimize the risk. To kind of say, well, we think it's going to go this way, and then you're going to place your bets and you take your chances. Okay, so how can you minimize those risks? Okay, well, one of the ways to minimize it is to really activate the intelligence of your team. That you've got people who are thinking individuals who are collecting information, who are processing information, who are exchanging that information with each other. And this is we can find that in the 4 principles of agility at the heart of Agile that Alistair talked about. As a leader, I think what you're learning to do is, how do we activate the intelligence in the room? Before, back in the days of Henry Ford, he could figure out a better way to build a car and say, okay, guys, go do it. Everyone would salute, say, yes, sir. They go off and do it. And that was a huge step forward compared to what was going on before. But today, the problems are harder. The world is more complex. All of the mousetraps have already been built. We don't need a better, we don't necessarily need a better mousetrap. So if you're going to build a better one, it's not only got to be a better mousetrap, but somehow it's got to change the world. And so all those things, I think one of the key things is, how do we activate the intelligence of our team? How do we collaborate together to achieve long-term goals? How do we respond systematically to new information? Okay, and I think that these are the problems that from a perspective of personal agility that we're trying to address, so that teams of people can collaborate with each other more effectively. And we're not the first people to try to do this. Unfortunately, there's a lot of baggage out there in the Agile community, and people say, "Oh, Agile! Don't talk about Agile. I don't want to hear about it." I have got so much pain from Agile, and these Scrum guys, these are the worst. They're the Kanban guys, and oh boy, the safe. Well, this looks good, but it doesn't work either. So, Okay, let's breathe. What's the problem? Who can help us with the answer? What are the questions we need to be asking to get the right answer? So, I think that's the space that where personal agility is really going to help us dealing with these new challenges.
Yeah,
I feel like I went into orbit there. I'm getting a little tired.
I think that's a really good point, Peter. I think that was really, really well said. And, Snehal, I'll turn it over to you for comments and thoughts and reflections to that in just a moment here. But, this really is part of the big challenge, right? People have been sort of kind of doing Agile, though I think the motions of Agile. Hey, is this what Agile's like? Like if you're trying to ride a bike, but you're just like kind of moving your legs up and down, but you're not really pedaling. Like, it's like you're going through the motions, but you're not going anywhere. And so it's like, can we look at truly deeply internalizing these concepts, these values, the mindset, and can we actually shift something in how we work? Not just, okay, I'm going to the meeting for the Agile meeting, right? And so I feel like it's more than just the ceremony of it. And it's that intrinsic adoption and connection that is what's missing. It's really people getting it and really living it. And it's back to what Thomas was talking about with unbossing. It's about the people that have lost that passion. And so when people go through the motions, we don't get those real results, right? And so Snehal, would love to get your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming from like background in tech, I think one of the things, and being a visionary in this space, I think one of the things that I see is that we're going to be working a lot with AI, with a lot of systems. So it's collaborate, and we need to keep the heart of collaborating with people. And that's why I feel like it's oftentimes that intrinsic motivation that's there is lost because we're so busy with the day-to-day things that we use. I mean, how many of you will wake up in the morning and first thing you do is check your phone, right? You check your email or you check a text message. But even though you have family members at home, you won't say good morning to them because they're doing the same thing, right? So oftentimes that communication, that touch, that human touch, that's not there. And I think that's what personal agility, the system really provides, is that, again, prioritizing, right? Because that might not be your priority. I mean, hopefully that's not the case, but you want to prioritize that. You want to prioritize that communication, taking that time out. Hey, I'm going to take out, 10 minutes every day in the morning to make sure I say hi to my wife and say, before she just goes off into her phone, and that's the world she lives in, right? And so it's important to do that, to put the brakes on. And I think that's what personal agility system allows you to do, is it allows you to really hit the brakes on that, right? And really, again, think back and say, okay, I need to do this. So to me, as systems evolve, as AI evolves, hopefully we don't get to the point where it's AI talking through my Alexa or my voice that sounds like my voice and my wife thinks that's me. Hopefully we don't get to that point. But I think it's important that we don't see these emerging technologies as a threat, but more as an opportunity, right? So we as Agilists adapt, we do what we say, right? Adapt to that change, evolve as we go, right? And I think using that personal agility system to help you do that as a tool guide will really help us move forward as a community, right? And really putting back the touch of us working with humans. And so to me, I really agree with what Peter had to say there, right? And Maria, you as well, in terms of we really don't want to do things just for the motion. We really want to build that intrinsic motivation and that purpose and that inner why of why we're doing what we're doing. And then, portraying that to others as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Snehal. Appreciate that. And thank you for joining us, sharing some of your insights, your personal story, your experience with personal agility. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us here today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. So we have one more speaker today, and I'm really excited to invite Katrina Snow to share more about her experience using personal agility. When we first started exploring this concept and Katrina was looking at how to apply the personal agility system, there were some deep insights from a different perspective. And I think it can be really powerful to, look at these things, look at this approach from different ways. And so Katrina, welcome. Great to have you with us. I'm glad you're able to join us, and would love to just get your thoughts on, what are your thoughts on personal agility, and where were you before it? How did you feel that it helped you? And what do you think that this brings as hope for others?
Excellent questions, and thank you for having me. I will say, I actually want to piggyback on what Snehal was just saying when he was talking about going through the motions. I think that's a big part of it. Everyone sometimes can seem really mechanical. Every day almost seems like you're just a robot. You're going through the motions. You're just, hi wife, hi kids, hi husband, go to job, come home, eat dinner, go to sleep. And that's a lot of what my life was like, but with absolute chaos wrapped around it. I don't need you floating is the only way that I can explain it. It was floating through everyone else's needs, floating through the details of the day, and not really being in the moment with anything, and then wondering why I feel depressed and overworked and even like overstimulated, and kind of sort of almost like my brain was being rewired. That's really how I was feeling, and I needed to control it. I needed to find the systemic issues. And it wasn't as easy as when I was younger and I was like, oh, I feel kind of crummy. I'll go to the gym, or I'll go for a swim, or I'll go away for a weekend. You can't do that when you're a wife and a mom and you work full time and you have all these other family responsibilities. You're being pulled in so many directions. So for me, it made sense to break things down. It made sense. I have to get to the systemic part of this. I have to figure out what is making me tick, what is making me go, and are those the right things? Am I being motivated by the right things? And so that's kind of where I was before. It was really chaotic, and it was a lot of trauma response, and it was a lot of seeing myself start to have characteristics that of someone with like ADHD and OCD, and I'd never had those type of symptoms before. And the idea of something like a food card chart, writing down what you're eating every day to try to stay healthy. That was way too much. It was way too heavy. I couldn't dare have that responsibility of recording something every day. And I think with personal agility, there was so much more flexibility. It was so much more fluid. I didn't feel like I was getting in trouble with my personal trainer because I didn't write down that I had oatmeal that morning. It was me, and it was me alone. And it was me being honest with myself. And that's how it really catapulted into, what else am I lying to myself about? Does that make sense? Yeah, that's really.
And Katrina, I think what you're touching upon here, and this is why I'm so excited for you to join and share part of your story with us today, is because you're touching upon things that I think a lot of people are juggling and nobody's talking about exactly how overwhelming it is to try to work, try to raise kids, try to do all the things, be the perfect wife, do all of these. It's a lot. And when do you get the attention on yourself? When do you focus on what matters to you? And how can you be at your best for everyone else when you're putting yourself last? And I think this is something so incredibly important for so many people out there that have families, that have lots of responsibilities, that are, they're breadwinners as well. And so I think this is something that it's such a powerful story of how just taking that step back and being able to get a handle on it. Like there's hope. It's back to the hope. There's something different that can be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that the thought of taking a step back, I think for a lot of people sounds really overwhelming. Oh, well, if I take a step back, then all these other things aren't going to happen. These things aren't going to get done. Well, that's a problem. You have a partner. Maybe you don't have a partner. Maybe you're a single parent. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you don't have kids. If you can't take a step back, and I don't mean for like, people are always like, well, you have to find me time. Sometimes it's really hard because when you come out of, let's say you went to the salon for, a couple hours, the hard part is when you come home and in fact, everything has fallen through the cracks. Nothing is done. The house is a mess. Everything's chaos, chaos, chaos. How can you actually have time for yourself if any time that you do, you come back and there's more work made for you? Right. And sometimes this isn't just for people who are parents or married. It could be anyone. You could have roommates. It could really go under any, but I can only speak to myself being a mom and a wife and a mother and a sister and a daughter and a granddaughter and all of those things, and how taking a step back was really scary. The sound of it felt overwhelming until I started putting together my priorities map. How easy is that? What matters to you? If you can't rattle off the things that matter to you, then we got to take it a step deeper then. And I started to see what really mattered and how none of those things were getting attention. None of them. And it was almost therapeutic in a way. You know, you start to, well, you can't feel guilty and you can't beat yourself up, but how can I start to move these things around in my life? And it was small steps. And then before I knew it, everything took off. And I was holding myself more accountable without being negative towards myself. And I think that's the big difference. A lot of people think that if you hold yourself accountable and you let yourself down, you beat yourself up. That's not how it should be. And I think with personal agility, there's a lot of forgiveness in it because we're all still growing. We're all still learning about ourselves and the different situations that come into life and how we handle them. And I think that the system really works, especially when you have chaos, especially then.
Katrina, thank you so much for sharing a little bit more behind your story. Katrina is in the book. Her story is here. It's about how to overcome chaos. And Peter, just wanted to open up the floor for any thoughts or comments or reflections from you.
You know, I hear that a lot. There's an inner voice, an inner critic, which is kind of always looking over your shoulder. You're not a good boy. You're not a good girl. You're not good enough. You're not, and, this is, I think this gets back to what I think it was. I'm blacking out. It was Sinal who was talking about kind of who you are and who's your image of yourself, and personal agility kind of helps you have understanding for yourself and empathize with yourself. And so you're not only getting visibility about what really matters, but you're also seeing all the stuff that's on your plate. And you're realizing, hey, I'm doing the best I can, and I got all this mountain of stuff to deal with. And and also say, well, I got all this stuff to do, and I didn't get any of it done, but I got that done, I got that done, I got that done. And you can pat yourself on the back for it. And I've in a number of my coaching situations, I've seen it where people have, just been so, wow. I mean, I don't have to carry all that baggage with me, and it's such a, such a relief, and it's enabled them to, be firmer with relatives who are too demanding, and feel better about themselves, and so it's one of those recurring patterns, and I can feel the power in it for you, Katrina. This. And I'm so glad for you because you were able to kind of get the mess and kind of recognize who you are and what you're doing and feel better about yourself.
Definitely.
I mean, I feel like anything I would say would detract from it, so I'm not going to say anything more. But I'm just delighted for you, and I'm delighted that we can do things, and also that you're a part of this, and help making it possible for other people to experience the same thing.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. And thank you, Katrina. I so appreciate you making the time to join us today. And I just think your story is something that's so incredibly relatable and has the opportunity to create that hope for others. And so excited to have your story in the book, and appreciate you joining us today. Are there any final thoughts you want to leave everyone with?
I would say you have to communicate. They say communication is key, but you also have to communicate with yourself. And I think that really is a big part of it. When you're doing those priority maps, you are communicating with yourself, to your very soul. You're having open, honest communication with yourself. And it can be hard, and it can be messy, and it can be scary, but it's so worth it. Definitely worth it. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. Oh man, I absolutely love hearing these stories. I love hearing the impact it's had on people's lives. And, this is something that I want to invite you to start to apply the personal agility system, start to apply these techniques. We would love to hear your stories. Get the book. We're making it very affordable. It's on Amazon today, published through the Business Agility Institute. You can get the Kindle version for just $1 today. You can also get the hard copy, soft cover as well. And Peter and I have a very special treat for all of you today. We're celebrating our book launch. If you go to the registration page toward the bottom, we have a training series that we are going to make available for free for all of you as a thank you for getting the book. Thank you for supporting us. And Peter and I are going to be leading these different sessions, some together, some separately. And this is going to be completely free for you to join and really start to explore these concepts of personal agility from a variety of different perspectives. So on February 8th, I'm going to lead a section on path and purpose. See if I can lure Tarek into maybe making a guest appearance there as he was talking today. On February 15th, Peter and I are going to present together about how to empower your people for higher performance at your organization. On February 15th, later that day, I'll be talking about accelerating business results. I might be able to lure Snehal into making a guest appearance there as we're talking about merging technologies and things that you can do. Peter's going to talk about agility for executives. We heard many stories today about executives and the results that they're able to get. So that's March 1st. And then really getting down to real results, boosting EBIT through agility on March 15th. So looking at what are all of the things that you can do, the different ways you can apply personal agility from a personal perspective, applying and discovering your own path and purpose to getting to the point where you're accelerating your business results, you're leading through this, and also getting real end results in the market. So Peter, just want to invite you to join me up here on the main stage as we are coming to the conclusion of the summit. And let me go ahead and put that link in the chat. It is the same link that you registered at. So it's personalagilityinstitute.org/summit. Yep, Peter has it there in the chat. Thank you. So we will be sending you the details, Gordon, for being able to register for these events. So we'll send a follow-up email from the event today. And we want to encourage you and invite you to invite your colleagues, invite friends, invite other people. We're truly on a mission. I don't know if you've been able to pick up on this throughout the day yet, but we are very passionate about helping inspire people through this concept of personal agility. We love helping create these results. And it's an amazing day today to have our official book launch because it's been years in the making. Peter, any other thoughts that you'd like to share with us here?
I'm just, kind of reflecting back on the day, and I'm just really amazed by all the energy which we felt here. The discussions, the interactions, people sharing things that have had, really huge impact on their lives and on their work and things like that. And I'm just saying, wow, did we really do this? I want to pinch myself and say, is this real? So I guess what I want to do is, first of all, I'd really like to say thank you to all the people who took time off from their days to speak with us. And I noticed a lot of them, they didn't just come for their 15 minutes, but they came for big chunks of the day, to not only share their story, but to also kind of feel the energy of the other stories. And of course, to everyone who's still here, most of you have been here, I think, most of the day. Which I must admit, I was really a surprise to me. I thought we we're going to have a lot of people kind of popping in and popping out, and the people would be staying really all the way to the end. So I think Maria's talking about the MVPs of the day. And this is not the minimum viable products; these are the most valuable players. This is the American thing here, the old version of MVP. And I also really want to thank Maria for today. I mean, she was just amazing, and she completely hid that she was maybe just feeling a little teeny tiny bit under the weather today, and she's been awesome. So I want to do a round of applause for Maria for hosting and emceeing a great event today. Thank you so much, Maria.
Oh, thank you, Peter. I really appreciate that. And it's been an amazing journey over the last several years, and sometimes I wonder why I pushed myself so hard to be always speaking about these concepts and teaching and long hours. And it's like this intrinsic motivation to create a positive impact in the world that I can't fully explain. And so just having all of you here, having you support our work, having you, share the things that we talk about, it really means the world to me, and it means the world to us, because it's about, when you look out at the world, I'm just going to say it, like the world, it's getting very, it feels like it's unraveling sometimes, right? Like the entire world shifted over the last couple of years, and it can be a scary thing to think about with all the changes that are coming up and uncertainties and people talking about the economy. And so what's really left at the end of the day? Well, this powerful question of what really matters, and asking ourselves that, and is it the flash? Is it the money? Is it the success? Or is it our family? Is it the people in our lives? Is it that inner fulfillment? And that's what I think the bigger question is. And so we just want to leave you with this question of what really matters. And we'll send out a follow-up email from the event today. If you had to step in or out, you can catch the full replay, and would love to invite you to join us for a personal agility course. Would love to invite you to come to the free training series that Peter and I are putting on, and get the book. So please share it. This is the real feature of the day today is this book that has been written via the internet. Peter and I back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for years to get all of these stories and these case studies and these real world examples to show what's possible, applying Agile in your life to do more of what really matters. And thank you, Peter, for joining. Thank you for kicking us off today. Thank you for helping engage our crowd and keeping the conversations going. Cyrus, we will be sending you the link. Yes, registration is open. We have the series of events and the Zoom links. We're going to send it all to you after this event. So you will get an email with a link to join us for our free training series. So we hope you all join us. Thank you everyone for being here. And it's been an absolute pleasure spending the day with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks to both of you. It's been an absolute joy and a pleasure. And I've been so inspired by so many of the stories and reached out to a lot of them through LinkedIn as well. So fabulous. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gordon. Gordon, thank you for hanging with us all day on camera.
I'm in the fortunate position. I'm actually between clients at the moment, so I actually had the space available. I've had this in my diary for a while, so it's just like, no, this is something I really want to attend, and I'm so glad I did.
Oh, amazing. Thank you,
Thank
Gordon.
you, Gordon.
Awesome. So as we wrap up today, feel free to drop off. Would love to hear your biggest insights in the chat. Comment in the chat. What did you like about today? Any speakers that stood out? And we will be sending a follow-up email with information about the free training series and more ways that you can learn about personal agility. So thank you, everyone. That's a wrap.